Hello, everyone. We will regularly bring you stories you like. I looked around, half expecting someone to announce that it was all a prank. It appeared too weird, strange, and warped to be real. I wished it had all been a joke, no matter how distasteful and poorly prepared, but it wasn't. Natalie and I were not a young, naive couple. We were both in our 30s, and confident in who we were. Neither of us had ever married. This is a first for both of us. We were two first-timers exploring unfamiliar land, and Natalie was constantly following me around, apologizing for everything. Our chats were often loaded with regrets. I couldn't help but wonder why she was apologizing. It was a puzzle I may never solve, but I was determined to try. We initially met through our employment. I was the boss of a small but prosperous mine, and she was a consultant hired to administer personality tests to our personnel. Perhaps her skill to read people made her believe she could get away with what she did. More about that later. In my office, she sat across from me and discussed the testing process. It was unprofessional of me, but I was unable to concentrate on her remarks. There was something about her that fascinated me, causing me to lose all sense of reality and cognition. Natalie was not a conventional beauty. She distinguished out for her tall, slim physique and distinctive features. Some might have commented on her large nose or broad mouth, but it simply added to her appeal. Just like Julia Roberts. Natalie's flaws only contributed to her allure. Natalie was, in my opinion, the definition of perfection. The attraction was mutual, and I was always glad for it. I knew I wasn't a classic gorgeous guy, but my mother thought my unique appearance was an advantage. She preferred to compare me to David Stern instead of George Cloy. I may not have been the typical heartthrob, but I had a strong mind and a decent sense of humor. However, it became more difficult to find something to chuckle about over the trial period. Natalie and I exchanged amorous glan, but I was careful until her contract expired. Then I arranged a special date for us. We had a picnic along a pebbled creek, eating pate brie, apple slices, grapes and cherries. Afterward, I taught her how to pan for sapphires, and she discovered the one I had concealed in her pan. She trusted me with her jewel, and I made it into a pendant that she proudly wore. Unfortunately, that pendant was the final memento of her generosity. Before she broke my heart, dating suddenly became an engagement. Engaged, such an antiquated term. Unfortunately, it did not come with traditional values. Our whirlwind engagement lasted less than a year before we married. The delight of our early years has only exacerbated the anguish of current times. How could we believe that we could go from such happiness to this situation? How did everything get so disastrously off course? Our exhilaration over house hunting, giggling, and bonding, while painting and renovating to construct our ideal home, has turned into my current nightmare. How did this happen? The beginning of the end began simply with a knock on the door. Natalie returned to the kitchen, where we had been enjoying our Sunday coffee and newspaper habit. I cherished that basic routine. She appeared pale and scared. "What is wrong, sweetheart?" I inquired, concerned that one of our parents had been in an accident. Why else would she be upset by a knock on the door? "Samantha Julian found me." She talked rapidly, her voice quivering. I placed down my coffee and spilled it on the floor. I knew who Julian was. He was her first love, the one she had when they were both 17. They had a kid together, but the families felt it was best if the baby was adopted. Natalie named him and gave him to a young couple without children when she had a little too much to drink. She'd think of him, how she inquired in her voice, still unstable. I do not know, he's in the living room." I stood up and followed her in our living room. We noticed a young man sitting. I could only see the back of his head. His hair was dark and wavy. It appeared he inherited Natalie's waves. Natalie grabbed my hand forcefully, her squeezing unpleasant. She walked me around the living area until we reached Julian, who stood and extended his hand. I tried not to show my response, but I couldn't stop myself from asking questions. Look, I directed Natalie's direction. She had never mentioned that Jay, her childhood love, was of Indian or Pakistani origin. It could explain why both sets of grandparents decided it was best to place the infant for adoption. "Hello, Mr. Goodwin. I apologize for just showing up on your doorstep like this." I wasn't sure what else to do. I grinned as I shook his hand. "Nice to meet you, Julian. Call me Samantha." Julian grinned. "I've been seeking for my mother for ages. I just got here. Things were a little busy, but I couldn't wait any longer. I'm quite happy to finally meet her." Julian's English was flawless, and I believe many young females found his accent appealing. I examined him, expecting to detect a glimmer of mercy in his appearance. The sole resemblance was his lustrous dark hair. His father must have been gorgeous. Julian had the allure of a movie star, much like the actor who portrayed the love rival in the second-best exotic Marigold Hotel film. Natalie grabbed my hand hard. "You can let him stay here, correct?" She stared at me with pleading eyes. I realized I couldn't say much without being insensitive. Julian was comfortable in our guest room at the end of the day, and Natalie was clearly excited. I had never seen her so excited. Not even in the early stages of our relationship, she shook in anticipation. I wasn't happy to have Julian in our family, but I wanted to support Natalie. She had long harbored doubts and feelings of shame about her parents' decision. If having Julie around for a while helped her, I'd set my worries aside for the next few months. I tried not to allow Julian's presence interrupt our lives. Our normal habits shifted, and some were completely abandoned. We no longer drank wine while making supper together, sat in bed on Sundays with coffee and a newspaper, or spent Saturdays visiting markets and antique shops. Our weekly travels to the Highlands for hikes had also come to an end. Our daily messaging also grew less frequent. Natalie and Julian embraced new customs, frequently making curries together and enjoying Indian cuisine. Having it virtually every night got monotonous, and savoring other dishes, such as steak, necessitated prior preparations with Natalie so she and Julian could go out for the evening. Julian's heritage as a Hindu made beef distasteful to him on weekends, so they went on trips while gently indicating their desire for me not to attend because they thought museums and galleries would be boring. Evening was spent watching them laugh and have serious chats. They occasionally exchanged long, loving hugs. He referred to her as Mummy, with affection, as a young boy, which I felt like an outsider in my own marriage, a stranger at home. I attempted to rekindle the spark. We went on dates, and I surprised her with flowers. However, her lack of response pained me. I couldn't articulate how I felt without fear of being judged. My wife was slowly moving away, and I felt powerless to stop it. I assisted Julian in finding various employment, but none of them proved to be viable. I shared apartment listings with him and Natalie, even offering to pay their rent until they settled. However, nothing worked out, and my aggravation and hatred increased. Our once amazing sex life had reduced to brief, purely physical experiences. The intimacy, love, and sensuality we previously shared were disappearing, and my marriage seemed like it was slipping away from me. Time appeared to slow as the months passed, and my excitement waned with each passing day. I might as well have been alone while living with two others, considering how little effort Natalie and Julian put into including me. Natalie's apathy to my pain was palpable, and she went out of her way to avoid being with me. For extended periods, I assumed her tactics were intended to keep me from confronting her behavior. Natalie reduced her contract employment, leaving only her part-time college teaching income to support their family. She felt guilty and urged her partner to pay their lifestyle. He loathed Natalie for losing interest in her profession. Him and their life together, the final straw for their new acquaintance came when their activities had an influence on his work, which was responsible for the well-being and safety of 160 men. I unexpectedly decided to take a week off from work. I wanted some time to clear my mind and have a serious conversation with Natalie. We couldn't keep skirting the problems between us. I needed to make a change. I requested time off on Thursday and only worked half a day on Friday to complete my tasks. On my way home that evening, I stopped at a store to pick up some flowers and champagne. I intended to take Natalie to our favorite French cafe, away from Julian, hoping she would not only hear, but also listen as a bonus. I'd want a properly cooked steak. I was encouraged by my decision, quietly optimistic that my calm and sensible comments would reach my emotionally distant wife of 9 months. I entered the house with flowers and a briefcase. The home was peaceful, save for some strange music coming from upstairs. I suspected it was coming from Julian's room. I arranged my belongings in the entryway and placed the flowers in the sink. I climbed the stairs into our bedroom, intending to shower and change out of my work clothes. The bedroom door was open and the music puzzled me. I went inside and came to a complete halt. I could not believe what I saw. It could not be real. My initial reaction was horror at the terrible image that appeared in. Why did my thoughts bring me to this horrible scene? What type of person would I be to think such horrible thoughts? The floor underneath me felt like it was shifting, swaying like a wave. I could not help but gasp. The music in the background drowns out their breathing and whispering. They moved fluidly and harmoniously, as if they were dancing. I was locked in place and unable to move. My stomach churned, and my throat struggled to keep the bile from rising. Her pendant, a gift from me, moved back and forth. I tried to look away from the disturbing scene, but I couldn't. It held me in place as my surroundings appeared to alter. It was like seeing a tragic accident in which individuals were put in danger. You want to look away, but you can't. The scene draws you in. My wife, the person I loved, was having a difficult time. I couldn't help feeling heartbroken. Natalie and Julian found themselves in an unpleasant predicament. Natalie, who was older and more experienced about personality types, had become associated with Julian, who was just 20 years old and still needed to mature. Natalie had clearly exploited Julian in some way, which disturbed the narrator, who detested Julian. The narrator decided to take action, but understood that calling the police would require evidence with trembling hands. The narrator took out their phone and managed to shoot a video of Ma and Julian, who were unaware they were being recorded. The footage showed them indulging in inappropriate behavior. The narrator felt a burning sensation in their throat as they watched the video on their phone screen. I couldn't take it any longer and slid my phone into my pocket. Before walking down the stairs to the kitchen, I put a damp tea towel against the back of my neck for relief. It felt refreshing. I poured myself a glass of water. While holding the towel to my neck and shoulders, I took a hefty gulp, swishing it around to remove the bitterness before dumping it into the sink with shaky legs. I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand. I chatted briefly with the cops and hoped they'd arrive shortly. The stars' sounds reverberated upstairs like nails on a blackboard. The music was terrible. I wished I could escape the nightmare my house had transformed into a car door, and a noise outside prompted me to rush to the front door. It seemed like an eternity before I reached it. 2 officers, one M and one female, stood in the doorway without speaking. I gestured to the stairs. The officers went slowly, batons in hand, silently ascending the stairs as a calm sitar song gave way to yells and turmoil, thuds and rustling noises echoed, causing me to shiver. Suddenly, quiet fell over the room, replaced by hushed voices. My attention was fixated on the stairs. The male cop appeared, first followed by Julian, who was handcuffed and dressed only in boxers. Natalie and a female cop followed. She was also shackled and wearing her favorite robe, which was firmly knotted at the waist. Natalie looked down her face, peed the lingering traces of passion on her chest. Visible through the rob's opening, heightened the embarrassment. Her eyes met mine, and my conflicting emotions became obvious. "He's not my son," she shouted, her voice booming throughout the home. Her words became increasingly urgent as time passed. "He is not my son. He is not my son." I hesitated, unsure what to do. The officer's remarks echoed in my ears. "You will have the opportunity to prove Mrs. Goodwin down at the station." I retreated to the kitchen. "The weight of the situation is bearing down on me," the officer's voice interrupted the silence. "Mr. Goodwin, I am Officer Kaplan. Could you please share with me the video you stated taking? It's evidence for the third time today." I removed my phone from my pocket. I handed it to Officer Kaplan, who looked at the screen. "Samantha." "May I call you Samantha?" he asked, and I nodded. "Samantha, you're probably shocked. Is there someone I can call for you?" "No, I'll get by. I simply need to process everything I never expected." This Kaplan took out a card from his pocket and gave it to me. "Here's my number. We might need to gather evidence for legal action. Can you stay away from here for a few days?" "Yes, I can't stay here right now. I will find a hotel. Please carry your phone with you. We might need to speak with that." He vanished, leaving me in the silent house. Anxiety pervaded the space I wanted to escape. I used the stairs to pack some clothes. I needed to climb them. Fear gnawed at my stomach. I did not want to witness the consequences of Natalie's lie. My mind was already filled with unsettling pictures as I slept among rumpled sheets and scattered garments. I grabbed my keys and a briefcase as I exited the front door just moments before getting behind the wheel. I realized I should not be driving. I was a potential accident. I pulled over poorly and parked the car, but my concerns grew deeper. While parked near a coffee shop, I found solace in a corner table. The place was crowded, but I managed to find a seat and order a coffee and cake. I sat pondering. Life's mysteries, thoughts flew through my mind like pinballs bouncing off one another and creating a whirlwind of confusion. I sat at the table, my coffee and cake ready for me. I took a moment to collect myself. As if relearning basic skills, I mentally instructed myself. Cup to mouth, sip, swallow, spoon, 4 cakes, scoop into mouth, swallow, repeat the rhythm. Calmed my racing thoughts. Natalie's situation was complicated. She either had a secret affair with her son or denied it. I am not calling him my son. Was she telling the truth or not? Regardless, she invited her lover into our home and conducted their relationship. Right in front of me, lies filled my mind. Months of deception and betrayal had left me breathless. I struggled to grasp the enormity of it all. My stomach churned with another kind of sickness. I felt foolish, gullible, and naive. I didn't know what to believe. Was Julian really her son? I should have questioned the lack of resemblance between them. Julian's Indian heritage was undeniable, but I never doubted, I just believed. If I hadn't seen them as mother and son, their interactions would have seemed suspicious. I was too trusting, and they must have laughed at my gullibility. I felt drained. He'd manipulated my trust for his own gain in every aspect of life. How could I have been so blind? How would he concealed his true nature from me for nearly 6 years? It seemed unbelievable that someone I once considered a friend could turn out to be so deceitful. I kept my cold coffee, realizing the cup was empty. The remnants of the chocolate cake on the plate were just a few crumbs. I set the cup back on the table, feeling a bit disoriented. The absence of something to do momentarily threw me off focus. Samantha Focus, if a friend confided in me about a similar situation, what advice would I give them? The answer came fast. Stay safe, she revealed her true self. Now I must trust her. She's a parasite, a master of deception. Someone without a moral compass, a lack of principles. Ruthless, possibly a sociopath. She wouldn't think twice about betraying me in a way she already did. It's time to prioritize myself. I glanced down the street and noticed a branch of my bank. A nearby bank had a branch, just 2 doors away, ready to gain a new customer. I contemplated taking only half the funds, but remembered supporting a troublesome duo for months. In the end, I left her $10, and that was only because the account was a joint one, and I worried I would need her signature to close it. I discovered the world of credit cards. Mine was hardly ever used and had a 0 balance. Natalie, on the contrary, often spent a lot. Each month the card was set to be paid in full from our joint account. Natalie received her university salary monthly, a week before her credit card's direct debit. Usually her earnings didn't cover her credit card expenses. I didn't want to be responsible for the remaining balance. Natalie had taken enough for me already. As I waited for my new accounts to open, a solution appeared. I need to make a public announcement stating that Natalie and I were separated effective immediately, and I would not be responsible for her future debts. It might not hold up legally, but it was worth trying. Checking my watch, I heard from the bank, determined to post the ad online before the deadline. Thankfully, I grabbed my briefcase earlier. Fate was on my side. After publishing the ad, I searched for lawyers and secured an appointment for Monday. This allowed me a weekend to gather all the required information and documents. Next, I needed a real estate appraisal. My house, once a dream, was now a nightmare. Natalie had to face justice, or else I'd sell it. I wasn't staying there longer. A quick search found 3 agents on Main Street. One was visible from the car. Perfect. I arranged for an appointment with Tom Harris from one agent for the next day at my soon-to-be former home. Feeling safer, with the immediate precautions in place, I regained a sense of control. However, I was drained. I drove to the Sheraton, our usual choice, for accommodating board members visiting the site, knowing they had upscale shops, a restaurant, and a bar on the lower level. I decided to purchase the necessary items despite the high cost. As I had no energy to shop around elsewhere, exhausted from the long day, I entered my hotel room. After fumbling with the electronic key card, I quickly dropped my belongings on the bed and shook my head, wondering about the high price of those boxer briefs. Naked, I headed to the bathroom, hoping a hot shower would help me forget the disturbing thoughts of Natalie and her son's actions on our bed. As I stood under the warm water, I tried to wash away the memories of the past 9 months in an attempt to block out my emotions. I put up barriers and organized my protective measures. However, my efforts failed when I couldn't stop seeing Natalie entangled with Julian, dancing passionately in my mind's eye. Her pendant swaying between her breasts only added to my torment. The anguish and loathing I felt was enormous, like a literal weight in my chest. I pondered if it was a heart attack, if that could be better than this pain. I wished for anything, even death, to alleviate my misery, leaning against the shower wall. I hoped the same time healed all wounds held some truth. I ordered room service, anticipating a great steak, but it tasted like sawdust. Natalie's deception was the basis for my disappointment. I cursed her, wishing nothing but the worst for her. I slipped under the blankets, still annoyed at Natalie. The only bright aspect of the day was that my emotions were so spent that my body and mind shut down. I fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow upon entering the residence on Saturday morning. I wasn't prepared for what I witnessed. Natalie is wearing a provocative dressing robe and clutching a glass of wine. She must have posted bail swiftly. Tom's eyes, Ed at seeing her half-exposed chest. Samantha, we need to discuss. She stammered, staring at Tom in uncertainty. The wine in her palm indicated that it wasn't her first, and it wasn't even lunchtime, Natalie. You pretty much summed it up yesterday. A picture can tell 1,000 stories, I said to Tom. Gesturing, so this is the front entrance. If you follow me, I will show you the kitchen. It's relatively new, just over a year old. Tom was uneasy, but pushed past Natalie to join me. The countertops are quartz, and the backsplash is glass, and there's a walk-in pantry. Tom paused. Samantha, what is going on without looking? I responded, I'm giving Tom a tour so he can provide an appraisal. An appraisal, but we're not selling for the house. Of course, I said with a grin. Do you need some time to talk about this with your wife, Samantha? Tom inquired gently. No, Tom, it is not essential, I said, turning to Natalie. I want to sell this home. Therefore, we have two possibilities. You buy me out or we put it on the market. We require an appraisal. In either case, I resumed our talk with Tom. The appliances are all high-end. There's also a wine chamber, which isn't strictly a cellar. We toured the house, underlining its characteristics while taking notes and photos. Natalie followed periodically, sobbing and attempting to interrupt. I spoke over her, and Tom did his best to ignore her. I felt awful for him, but once the house sold, he would receive a large fee as I let him out. He told me that he would calculate the valuation that night and notify me the next day. Great, another chore accomplished in isolating my life from Natalie's. I closed the door and turned. Natalie was so close, I nearly ran into her. She clutched my arm to balance herself, and the aroma of sour wine and her perfume floated up my nose. My skin tingled. Please, Samantha, let us debate this. Like I have stated, there is nothing to debate. Please, Samantha. Let me clarify. I focused my sight on her. Will clarify, help you feel better. Yes. Well, Natalie, after the awful situation I went through yesterday, which was the result of months of hidden truths and betrayals, I have no desire to console you, Samantha. You're making a decision that you may later regret. I gave out a mocking laugh. Surely she was joking, Natalie. What precisely would I be regretting? Discovering you and your son. He is not my son, no matter what you say. The deceptive, untrustworthy, and dishonest individual. So what would be my regrets? Being misled? Being betrayed? Perhaps you're being manipulated, being made to appear silly. Which of these would I regret? We're losing our connection. You'd miss our shared experiences. We work well together. Losing your love? I believe it's clear. I lost it almost a year ago. I was simply too trusting to realize that is assuming I ever truly loved you in the first place. And Natalie, you've been distant in ways that matter to me for months. So adding your physical absence to the list wouldn't make a big difference. I love you, Samantha. True. I do. This interaction with Julian surprised me. It caught me off guard. You might say he was in my classroom. There was something about him. I just felt an instant connection. I got carried away with a small instant connection. Blindsided. A bit obsessed. Natalie, you moved him in and displayed your affection, spent intimate moments together, in our home, told me he was your son. You told my parents the same. For all I know, he really is your son, and you're a depraved individual. No, no, no. She moaned. You can't really believe that I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Yes, your actions say that loud and clear. I replied, sarcasm, lacing each word. It's true. You have to believe me. No, I don't. Natalie, I don't have to believe a single word out of your mouth ever again. You gave up your right to my blind belief the day the first lie to me passed your lips. I don't want a divorce, she whispered. I didn't want a dishonest spouse. A deceitful, trustworthy, manipulative partner. For a wife, looks like we both escaped a bad situation. Samantha, please, I've told you he's not my son. I am so sorry. Please listen to me. Your intentions don't matter, Natalie. Your actions speak volumes. As I spoke, I realized my words held weight. I knew I didn't deserve her betrayal, and nothing you say will change how I feel about you or think of you, but you love me. You can't just turn it off like a tap. She cried. The Natalie I once knew vanished almost a year ago. Whether she was real or a figment of your imagination, it doesn't matter. Now you played your part well, but I've learned my lesson climbing the stairs. I couldn't help but notice the lingering scent in the air. It was as if the master bedroom held the remnants of a passionate encounter between Natalie and Julian. Determined to remove myself from the situation, I grabbed my suitcases and began packing my belongings. I filled 2 suitcases and a small carry, on taking care not to let the remnants of their real relationship taint my possessions with everything packed. I closed the cases and prepared to leave this chapter of my life behind. I'm meticulous. Lee cleared out my belongings from each room. I wasn't sentimental or naive. I didn't leave everything for Natalie. I kept what I wanted. I loaded my car with numerous boxes and cases, but there was too much for them. I called my father for help with his trailer once again. I was grateful for my father's ability to understand my voice and emotions without question, and he knew to wait for later as I continued packing. Natalie tried to engage me in conversation, perhaps hoping her emotions would sway me. However, her efforts only made me more resolute. I became closed off, viewing her words as more lies and manipulations. I had no clue where Julian was. I didn't care to find out. I heard the sound of my dad's car and turned to Natalie. If you say anything to him, I'll tell him what I found you doing with your son. Natalie didn't respond. Do you understand? Natalie nodded, looking scared. I opened the front door. Dad looked at me, then at Natalie, and then back at me. His expression said it all. All right, then what do you need moved? I brought my trolley in case there's anything big. I silently appreciated Dad's practicality. He followed my lead, disregarding Natalie as she trailed behind us. Distraught and disheveled, we communicated without words, using gestures to guide each other through the rooms. Natalie's cries seemed to bounce off an invisible barrier surrounding me. How long would this protection last? I hoped it would be enough to create some space between me and my current predicament. After placing the last items on board, my father placed a hand on my shoulder. Come with me, son, he said. I nodded. The weight of the past day starting to take its toll on me. The drive was fast-paced. When we stopped, I noticed we were parked in front of a storage facility near my parents' house. I leaned against the car, realizing I hadn't thought about what to do with all my stuff. We went inside, and Dad took charge of the paperwork. I was tired. The attendant gave us a map with a marked spot and handed over some keys. I followed Dad. We unpacked most items, leaving only my suitcases and carry-on. See you at the house, Dan? I acknowledged and headed to my parents' house in less than 10 minutes. I was in the kitchen sipping coffee my mum offered. We're here when you're ready to talk. My mum whispered softly, her calming voice. The one I remembered from my childhood broke through my defenses. I couldn't hold back the tears any longer and let them flow freely. My mum and Dad wrapped their arms around me, offering comfort and support. As the words tumbled out, I shared the painful story with them, my voice wavering and choked with emotion. Their faces showed their shock and disbelief. Our sweet Natalie, this can't be true, my mum murmured. Shaking her head in disbelief, she had always been fond of Natalie, and the thought of her being involved in such a terrible situation was unimaginable. What are you going to do? My dad asked. concern etched on his face. I didn't have an answer, but I knew I had to find the truth with my parents. By my side, I felt a little stronger, a little more hopeful that we could get through this together. I called the police. I assumed they're investigating. To be honest, I was surprised she was at the house today. I thought she'd be in jail divorce. My mother whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. You'd best defend yourself, Dan, after what she's already done. You can't know what additional depths she's willing to dig. You don't want her to go off with all your savings already done, Dad. We chatted some more. Mum demanded I stay with them until I could locate a house or apartment to rent. That was a relief. I didn't want to be alone, a state I imagined I'd have to get used to, a glimpse of my future spread before me. It appeared like a lengthy, lonely, barren landscape. Darn Natalie. Darn her to hell. That night, in the darkness of my childhood bedroom, I tried to sleep. I recalled a book I'd read long ago, having lines about dealing with hardships. The idea was that setbacks such as bad news or treachery felt like a punch in the belly, but the analogy fell short. It was more like the difference between being shot close range and getting a mosquito bite. My thoughts kept revisiting the horrific experience of seeing Natalie dance with her kid as if they were lovers in the bed that had once belonged to us. The vivid details of the situation tormented me. The sitar music, the rustling sheets, the aroma of Natalie's perfume, and my own shocked gasp. Every time I relived the moment, my heart pounded, a terrible reminder that I couldn't forget it. The mental upheaval I felt was like being repeatedly slapped in the chest, leaving me breathless and in pain. It appeared that a strong blast of wind was ripping away the essence of my being. My ideas, emotions, memories, and interactions are the intangible things that define me, vanished, disappeared. Although this term is brief, it does not convey the depth of the grief. I was an empty shell, looking for something to fill the hole. Instead of love and positivity, it was full of rage and hate. I did not oppose the change. It was good to let these emotions take over, rather than confronting self-doubt and sorrow. The wrath inside me felt like a palpable force. As substantial as the bed I was sitting on, it overwhelmed me, overflowing with poisonous energy. I did not try to hide or control it. It felt liberating to let it be seen and felt without pretense or concealment. I felt uneasy within, but I brushed it away. I knew my mother wouldn't identify the stranger in my brother's room. I hardly recognized him. The road to separation was difficult. Rumors of suspected incest spread like wildfire, generating headlines. However, a week later, a modest adjustment emerged. On page 20, many people saw Natalie's dishonor, while I faced financial difficulties because the courts compelled me to support Natalie until our divorce was finalized. This simply increased my monster's hatred for her. Natalie's divorce became a public spectacle, and she battled every step of the way. Endless negotiations in conference rooms, whether with her lawyer or mine, were an ongoing war. During those encounters, I envisioned my hand morphing into a claw, reaching across the table and ripping out Natalie's heart. While sorting through reams of legal paperwork, the words appeared red, as if written in blood. The most difficult aspect was attending court-mandated counseling for hours on end. Natalie went to treatment session wearing her jewelry as a continuous reminder. I strained to conceal my want to grasp her throat, but we persisted. Mary argued Julian was not her son, citing emails and documents as evidence. Despite our attempts and the counselor's advice, Natalie's defenses remained firm, leaving the enormity of her treachery unanswered. With each setback and obstacle she created, she increased my rage. Her unbiased eyes revealed the rage of a creature ready to attack. I witnessed her selfishness. If she genuinely loved me, she would have let me leave and prioritized my happiness. That's what I would have done for her when she was first in love with Julian. It would have been heartbreaking, but her happiness was most important to me. If she had chosen me back then, the monster would not have existed. Natalie was not easy to forgive. After attending court-mandated therapy sessions, I learned Natalie wanted my forgiveness and affection to move forward. She hoped I'd welcome her and forget the previous year and a half. Only then would she be able to live by herself. Natalie asked me to help her avoid her darker side. Instead, I presented temptation. I discovered Julian, who was actually Ravi Singh, an engineer with outstanding abilities but no formal degrees. One of my other engineers discovered him while he was on the spectrum. Despite his social issues, he had an extremely keen mind and frequently produced unique solutions and excellent contributions to the team. I'm grateful for the opportunity I provided him. 5 years ago, he's shown to be indispensable and fiercely loyal. We studied Julian, getting to know him and his family. We surreptitiously provided him with information, directing him back to Natalie. Even though she may not have comprehended his intentions, I did. Julian desired a rapid road to Australian residency. I assumed he was about to be deported to India and had spent months seeking Natalie. To his dismay, Natalie also lied to him. She claimed that we were in a defect relationship, which offended him. Despite this, he agreed to give Natalie another try. Natalie, who was always sorry and committed to Samantha, needed no convincing. After their divorce was finalized, she quickly rekindled her connection with Julian. Whatever charm he had was undeniably intriguing. My inner voice sneered, and my loving mother, attempting to make me feel less abandoned, theorized that Natalie might need to believe their relationship was founded on a profound love, a powerful, all-consuming bond, a love story reminiscent of Romeo and Juliet, an undeniable love, a love that, in Natalie's opinion, justified all of the suffering, deception, and shattered trust required for her and Julian to be together. Natalie was confident she had everything figured out. She assured herself and others that everything in her life was fine. However, I knew the truth. Despite my knowledge of the issue, my buddy Natalie was in an unsatisfactory relationship. I remained supportive of Natalie. I knew she needed someone to lean on, even if she didn't understand it. Meanwhile, my friend Julian pursued Natalie, hoping to win her over. Julian's efforts began to bear fruit over time. He was able to build a close bond with Natalie, and they eventually became inseparable. Natalie was pleased by her newfound connection. I couldn't help but feel uneasy. Natalie announced one day that she was pregnant. The revelation surprised everyone, but Natalie seemed to take it with stride. She was resolved to make the best of the circumstance and raised the child with Julian by her side. Natalie's pregnancy proceeded, and she began to have some health problems, such as frequent diarrhea and vomiting. It was at this point that I began to question if Julian played a role in her illness. I couldn't help but wonder whether he had fed her something that caused her problems, possibly another curry meal. Regardless of the circumstances, Natalie remained hopeful and focused on the future. She was resolved to make the best of the circumstance and raise her child with Julian's help. As for me, I will continue to be there for her, offering friendship and support through the ups and downs of her life. I could not have been happier. Her tantrums led to her eventual pregnancy. Julian proposed marriage as predicted, citing his conventional upbringing. Not that I thought Natalie would object. The self-absorbed woman would never ask why a young, gorgeous man would be drawn to a lady who was his mother's age. When I told my father the news, he grinned. He too recognized the degree of Natalie's vanity and innocence. Actually, my father was the one who inspired my revenge plot. My inner urges craved something more permanent and intense. However, even he recognized the value of avoiding jail for the rest of our life. When a man steals your wife, there is no better revenge than allowing him to keep her. That night I discovered Natalie's deception and informed a trusted friend. They provided advice that enabled me to move forward years later. Natalie was nearly 40, pregnant, and married to a considerably younger man, as expected. They both fulfilled their responsibilities, making my duty easier before their 10-day journey to the Whitsunday Islands. I felt I had to thank them for making everything so clear. Their exit made it easier to store the garden materials and aluminum powder. In the garage, which I had accumulated over time for a personal project, I actually enjoy my hobby, which involves canisters of motor oil and various instruments. Everything required for a handmade fireworks display was available at the same time. My resourceful friend enrolled Ravi in a fringe group, fighting for a shift in religious relations with drawings for Australia's largest mosque, Lemba. The setting was prepared for a dangerous incident. All you need are the appropriate elements. Julian was arrested upon his return from his honeymoon after receiving an anonymous tip, for fortunately the cops did not sympathize with him. The notorious couple made headlines again, but Natalie's pregnancy had an impact on her appearance. Ravi eventually got deported to India with a ban on future entry into Australia. Natalie relocated to Northern Territory, Australia, in search of a fresh start. Similar to the Wild West, she welcomed a healthy baby boy into the world. Natalie became a part of their lives. 5 years ago, she is now a 40-plus single mother with a biracial child. They hope she uses effective contraception. Natalie's career as a teacher is hampered by her poor reputation. Potential employers would require references, and hers would reveal allegations of incest and links to terrorism. They have no idea how Natalie's life has changed, including her situation and where she now lives. They are content to not know anything about her or her child. It appears that their inner monster has limits. It does not harm children. He couldn't continue to hurt Natalie without the consequences for her child. His darkness. A temporary lapse in sanity had lain dormant for a long time, perhaps forever. Casey, his sweet wife, and their energetic toddler had never felt his presence. Love, warmth, and kindness flowed through his veins, bringing him peace. A man returns home early after a late-night business trip. He asks the cab driver to witness his wife's suspected infidelity and offers $100 to catch her in the act when they arrive home. The husband and a driver enter the bedroom discreetly. The husband turns on the lights and pulls the blanket back, revealing his wife and another man. The husband draws a toy gun and points it at the man's head. The wife exclaims, "I lied about winning the lottery. He paid for everything." The husband lowers the toy gun and looks at the driver, asking, "What would you do?" The driver suggests using the blanket to cover him and keep him warm. Here is the next story on Father's Day. I woke up early as usual, eager to start the day. My wife and daughters were still asleep, so I knew it would be a while before they joined me every year. I would treat my wife to a special day, just like she did for Mother's Day. Breakfast would consist of a delicious spread, complete with freshly squeezed orange juice. For lunch, I'd prepare a delightful cheese fruit and nut plate, accompanied by a fine white wine. Dinner would feature her favorite steak and baked potato, perfectly paired with a Cabernet Sauvignon. When the girls were little, they used to help me with the preparations and pamper our mum. But as they grew into teenagers, they became less involved, leaving me to handle the spoiling on my own. It didn't bother me, though I was happy to make my family's special day memorable. On Father's Day, I looked forward to my wife surprising me with a special breakfast. Usually I'd eat something small early in the morning, but on this day, I waited for her to wake up and cook for me. She'd usually sleep in on weekends, so this was a treat. When she finally woke up, She greeted me with a kiss and a happy Father's Day before starting to prepare breakfast for the family. Later, we enjoyed a fun lunch at a doctor who themed sandwich cafe, making it a memorable day for all of us in a well-organized kitchen. A couple relies on a calendar to keep track of important dates and events from holidays to school activities. Every detail is meticulously recorded one day. The wife notices that the husband's birthday coincides with Father's Day, but he takes it in stride and jokingly asks for 2 gifts. Katie laughed, "I'll definitely do something special for you this year." As I left the kitchen, I couldn't help but think about the upcoming celebrations. I hoped she had something extra in mind. During our lovemaking sessions, intimate moments were often part of foreplay, but on birthdays and Father's Day, she would go above and beyond. It was a special tradition we shared, and I looked forward to it each year. My excitement for my special day was growing, but something felt off in our house. My wife's behavior was unusual, staying late at work, snapping at us, and dressing up more for her job as a bake shop manager at the local grocery store. She never wore makeup before, but she started to wear a smoke that showed off her cleavage on the Friday before my birthday. She went out without me, and I couldn't help but wonder what was going on. She rarely went out with the girls alone, but enjoyed spending time with a close-knit group of married couples. If she was invited to drinks, she'd inform me of the location, and I joined them later. He wasn't overly restrictive, she simply preferred his company. Their strong marriage was built on small acts of consideration. He also preferred staying within their social circle, and they enjoyed quiet nights and watching movies together. That Friday she descended the stairs, dressed up, catching me off guard. She wore a new short skirt, stockings, and high heels. Her freshly tanned skin and styled hair added to her allure. I whistled, "Wow, honey, did we have plans to go out tonight? I'll get dressed quickly," she replied. "No. Bill, I'm meeting some co-workers. Since the kids are going out too, you can order a pizza for yourself." I was taken aback by her sudden plans not mentioned earlier. "You didn't tell me you had plans. I thought we'd watch our shows together." A brief look of fear flashed across her face before she composed herself. "Sorry, baby. I was asked to join them today." He looked at her, a mix of confusion and anger in his eyes. "You just found out about it today, and in the short time you had off work, you changed your outfit, got a tan, and styled your hair." He couldn't help but feel suspicious. She was the perfect suburban soccer mom, always taking care of their family. Their relationship was strong, with a regular and loving connection. She defended herself. "I worked a half day today and wanted to look nice for a change. There's no reason for you to think otherwise." Her words stung as she left the room, leaving him questioning their relationship and wondering what had truly changed. I stayed up late, waiting for her return. She came in just before midnight, her hair tied back in a ponytail instead of the styled look I expected. She walked past me without a word, heading upstairs. Soon I heard the shower running. I couldn't help but wonder what I needed a shower before bed. She didn't say good night or come down. I knew something was off in our perfect life, but didn't know how bad it was. Saturday morning, I worked in retail management. Usually my Rue would wake her and she'd give me a goodbye kiss. This time, I got nothing. It left me shocked when I arrived at the store. I saw Missy waiting near the entrance. Missy was the friendly barista at the coffee shop inside the large store. She had a charming smile, and her eyes were a striking blue, though happily married. I couldn't help but adore her. I've always had a fondness for redheads. "Hey, Bill." Missy greeted me as I neared the entrance. We still had half an hour until the store opened. The night crew could have let her in, but she said once that she didn't feel safe being alone in the store with a number of guys. "Good morning, Missy," I said as I unlocked the doors for each of us. "What's wrong, Bill? You look like you've got the world on your shoulders. Apologies. I've just got a lot on my mind today." Missy raised an eyebrow, but didn't press the topic further. "Give me a few minutes, and I'll have a cup of our best waiting for you," I replied with a courteous smile. "I'll be back shortly." I secured the doors as she hustled to prepare the cafe for the busy morning ahead. I knew the morning would be chaotic, as it typically was at our small coffee business. I checked in with the teams, working on their separate regions. As I walked around, although my department managers were skilled, I still performed a walkthrough in the morning. It wasn't technically essential, but it allowed me to welcome my teammates and converse briefly. Building connection with my team members was crucial, and I believe they appreciated the effort. Finally, I arrived at the coffee shop where Missy had my huge black coffee waiting. "Here you go, sir, 1 cup of our premium coffee." "Thank you." I put $2 on the counter. "No, sir. It is on the house today. I insist on paying. I cannot risk someone being unhappy and reporting me to corporate." She seemed astonished. "Sir, I would never—" "I did not mean you. I am aware of this. It's simply not worth the risk. There are times when I have to make difficult decisions, such as refusing a day off or reducing overtime time. I cannot afford any further issues." "All okay, sir. I understand." I waved goodbye and sipped my coffee. Employees occasionally received complimentary coffee, but it was difficult to track who would want to monitor that anyway. It would take too much effort for a cheap cup of coffee. I couldn't fathom spending hours screening films to guarantee everyone had paid. Being at the top presented obstacles. Employees would become irritated over petty topics. I once had HR called on me to force the employee parking policy. Parking in the rear lot required a call to HR. Absurd. The day concluded without any serious incidents. The most exciting experience I had was seeing an old lady steal cat food and bird seed. It was the ideal low-key day I needed. I was busy enough that I didn't think about my problems with my wife, yet I still finished all of my responsibilities on time. When I entered the house, I discovered my wife and girls departing. For a moment, I was taken aback, but I checked the calendar with Daddy. My girls each kissed my cheek. My wife said nothing. They were going to a performance with other mothers and girls. The plan had been in place for a while, but as usual I had forgotten about it. I hoped to get a chance to speak with Katie and figure out what was going on. I disliked not knowing what she had done the night before. After not thinking about it all day, I had no choice but to ruminate on it. At night I decided to look at this more. I looked through her emails, but understood it was pointless. Emails are hardly used nowadays. I couldn't view her texts or call logs because she was carrying her phone. I then looked through the hamper, hoping to locate something from the night before, but it was Saturday, and she had done the washing. My efforts were futile, and after watching a movie, I went to bed without finding any solutions. I awakened the next morning to celebrate both my birthday and Father's Day. As usual, I started my day with some toast and a cup of coffee. I sat on the balcony enjoying the gorgeous morning. The birds were singing, and I was wondering surprises awaited me on this auspicious occasion at 9 a.m. I entered the living room to refill my coffee and was surprised to see my wife and girls packing a lunch. What's happening? I wondered why they were planning an outing without me. My daughter Jill explained. "We heading to the beach," I exclaimed before rushing upstairs to get ready for the beach. Jenny, another daughter, yelled out as I was putting on my shirt. "Bye, Daddy. See you later." The door closed, and I watched from the window as my family drove away. I could not believe it. I didn't expect the girls to remember my birthday, so I had to frequently remind them of their mother's birthday and Mother's Day. But I never imagined Katie would forget. My phone rang as I descended the stairs, leaving me feeling sad. I rapidly approached it expecting that someone would notice the issue and inform me that they would return for me. But that wasn't the case. It was my mother. "Hello, Billy. Happy birthday and Father's Day. Thank you, Mum, by the way. Does Katie have any plans for you both today?" "She took the girls to the beach a short time ago. Really, that is not like her. I'd have bet she'd make you a nice breakfast and make your day extra special." "Yeah. I really don't know what's going on right now. So don't worry about it. She's probably planning something special for later. I need to go to church. Now I love you, Billy." "Love you, Mum." I couldn't help but admire my mother's optimism. She adored Katie like she was her own daughter. They had regular visits since my father died a few years ago. I was preoccupied with my marital situation. When the phone rang again, "Bill, there was an incident at the coffee shop this morning. My assistant manager stated what happened." I inquired, concerned. "Missy was on a ladder when a customer bumped into her. She lost her balance, fell and explained." "No, is she okay?" I inquired, worried. "She's at St. Alex getting x-rays. She might have a broken arm or something," and reported poor girl. "Did you get shift coverage?" I asked, relieved to hear she was receiving medical attention. "Yes, we're all set. I just wanted to update you before you came in tomorrow. Happy Father's Day, and said thanks, and I hope Missy recovers quickly." I replied, "Don't worry about it, and thanks for the call. I hoped Missy would be all right." I searched around the house aimlessly and realized they weren't coming back. So I headed to IHOP for breakfast. It wasn't the best decision for my emotions. The wait was long, and the place was filled with happy families, celebrating fathers and grandfathers. I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. So I left before things got too overwhelming. I drove through McDonald's drive-thru instead, grabbing a big breakfast with coffee and orange juice. The pancakes turned out to be surprisingly delicious as I sat in the park, enjoying my meal with a plastic fork and knife. I gazed out at the small lake where I used to take my girls paddle boating when they were little. They loved the water, whether it be swimming, boating, or even fishing. The lake held so many happy memories. As they approached college age, the siblings gradually lost interest in fishing trips with their dad. Instead, they preferred spending time with their mother, which was understandable. Shopping for clothes with dad might not have been the most exciting activity for a young girl by 1 p.m. The narrator's wife hadn't checked in, so he assumed they wouldn't be having lunch together. He went to the doctor, Who Cafe, and ordered a sandwich with a playful name related to the show, like the revolution of the dollar. Reuben, as a 40-year-old man who wasn't quite in tune with what was trendy, he snapped a photo of his meal and shared it on Facebook. I received typical likes and Father's Day wishes from friends and colleagues. Interestingly, my mother-in-law thought I was at the beach with my wife and daughters as she commented on a beach photo. My wife posted on Facebook after finishing my lunch, "I decided to watch a sports game and have a drink at the bar near my house." The bar was too crowded, so I went to the cigar lounge next door and treated myself to an expensive Opus X cigar. I enjoyed the Sox game, and 2 men playing cards invited me to join them. "I'm Bill," I said, introducing myself to the older gentleman. "I'm Lance, and this is my brother Jerry. Nice to meet you both." They began a friendly card game in inviting me to join. "Help yourself," Bill Lance said, gesturing to a cooler, "except at a Miller Lite." "No kids?" Jerry inquired. Smirking, I replied, "My wife and daughters are at the beach. They don't know what day it is." Lance sympathized. "Sucks. I don't see my boys much. They're in the service." Jerry shared his experience. "My baby girl lives in California. My grandson just turned 2. I'm visiting next week." We continued our game, bonding over our shared experiences as parents. After some casual conversation, Jerry inquired, Do you think she truly forgot, or is she deliberately avoiding you? We both pondered this question. I shared recent events leading up to Friday night's difficulties, and they expressed sympathy. She's cheating on you, Lance concluded, to which Jerry agreed, initially shocked. I realized this explanation was most plausible, despite my denial. Listen, Bill, Lance said. I've been through a tough situation before: the change in behavior, the unexpected nights out, the disrespect. I've experienced it all. My wife and a co-worker. Well, let's just say they became too close for comfort. When I found out it was a turning point in my life, I ended up divorcing her. And it was the biggest mistake I ever made. What? I snapped. She cheated on you. How could divorcing her be a mistake in my mind? There was no valid excuse. Cheating was the end of a marriage. Plain and simple, period. End of story. Bill, for 5 years, I paid alimony and child support, feeling lonely and missing her. We both had our own loneliness at each other's places. I was too hesitant to forgive her when I found out about the cheating. After 7 years, we reunited, and now we're happy together. Wow, I said, it's unbearable to think of my wife giving herself to another man. If she's having an affair, she either forgot my birthday because she's too involved with her lover, or she's deliberately ignoring me. Neither situation is acceptable. Lance nodded. Bill, if you truly care for her, learn to forgive her. It'll benefit you in the long run. Thanks, Lance. You've given me a lot to think about, but inside, I knew I was crazy to consider. Forgiving her for her betrayal, I couldn't imagine reconciling after her affair. We parted ways, shaking hands and wishing each other well. Later that evening, I was on the couch, browsing Facebook, when I stumbled upon my family's posts filled with pictures of their joyous day. The sight only deepened my sadness. All right, I thought I needed to be strong and stop feeling like a lost soul. My wife accidentally missed my birthday. It happens she forgot Father's Day. Too well, what matters is that I suspected she might have been unfaithful on Friday night, and possibly many times before, given her strange behavior. Lately, her reminding me had to be her way of getting back at me. Well, she succeeded in ending things. It was time to move on with my life. I chose to visit my favorite restaurant for dinner. I knew it would be busy, but I had nothing better to do. So I freshened up, put on a nice sport coat in slacks, and went out for a steak while waiting for a table at the steakhouse. I sat at the bar. An older man took the seat next to me, filling the open spot. He noticed a single glass next to the champagne bottle and furrowed his brow. He didn't comment, instead ordering a martini. The bartender refilled my glass. The man couldn't resist asking, "Celebrating, or did you take someone's spot?" I replied, "I'm here alone." He acknowledged and sipped his drink. He seemed talkative, possibly in sales, he shared. "I'm waiting for my family. My wife's helping our injured daughter who broke her arm today. She's struggling with using her left hand." He chuckled and added, "You never expect your adult kids to have accidents." I agreed, nodding and understanding. "Looks like I'll be cooking for myself for a few weeks. My wife is going to have to take care of the kids and leave me on my own." My head snapped up. "What did you say?" Before he could answer, "A little girl," shrieked Grandpa from across the room and dashed through the crowded bar. A little flop of red curls jumped onto his lap and lavished the man with hugs and kisses. A moment later, I heard Bill. I turned and saw Missy, and who I presumed to be her mother, standing next to me. Her mother was her spitting image, except for a few lines around the eyes. They looked exactly alike. "Hi, Missy. How's your arm?" "It's okay. I'm on some strong pain meds, so I'm not feeling much. It hurt like hell when they said it, though." Missy presented her parents, Jack and Mary, and her daughter Mia to me. "Where's your wife, Bill?" Missy asked. "I don't know. She took my girls to the beach this morning, and I haven't heard from them all day on Father's Day. Worse, it's also my birthday today. No, did she blow you off on the best day of the year for you? What's her problem? I hesitated to address it further. Mary urged you must join us. Jack chuckled. Don't forget it isn't pretty when they group up on you, but it's our day, Jack Dad. He winked at me as the buzzer for their table went off. Settle up your tab, Bill, and meet us at our table. No bailing on us, he replied with a humorous tone. He threw a 20 on the bar and walked off. Sorry, Bill. My folks can be odd. Don't worry, Missy. I suppose it's preferable to eating alone. The dinner talk was full of humor. Bill and I told stories about our girls growing up, and Mia inquired about our youth. She couldn't stop laughing at her mother's funny childhood stories after dinner. My phone rang. I noticed it was my wife and ignored the call, setting the phone on the table. Mary inquired. Yes. Isn't it more than you're letting on? I believe so, but I don't have proof. Bill, everyone makes mistakes. Mary responded, glancing at Jack. Perhaps you can find a way to forgive her. Mrs. Head swung over and stared at Mary. I called the waiter over and gave him my payment card. Okay. I've ruined enough of your meeting. Thank you, Bill, for inviting me to enjoy your supper. Let me know, Jack. It was an honor to eat with you, and one of my favorite staff. It's on me. Happy Father's Day. I shook their hands and headed over to the table to collect the check. I didn't have concrete evidence she was cheating on me, but 2 others had already advised me to forgive her. What was wrong with the people? My phone rang constantly, but I ignored it. When I pulled into my garage, my 2 joyful children came up to me, showering me with kisses and hugs. They apologized for forgetting. Father's Day, do not worry about it, I said. I didn't expect you to remember my birthday. It is your birthday? Jill shouted and ran into the house. Daddy, we didn't know. I'm so sorry, she cried into my chest. You must detest us, no, baby. I adore you more than life itself. When she recommended going to the beach today, we enthusiastically agreed. We did not think, do not worry, honey. I am not upset with you. I didn't express my dissatisfaction with her mother, but that was my problem. Not yours. Let's go inside. Immediately, I walked through the living room, avoiding the intense conversation between my wife and daughters, and went upstairs to change. After changing into shorts and a tank top, I returned to discover my wife crying alone. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I shook my head and strolled out onto the deck, holding a drink and a smoke. The night was nice, and I enjoyed the peace for a change. I'm focusing on my work rather than my wife. When the sliding door opened, she avoided making eye contact and did not proceed any further out onto the deck. Bill, she paused. Who was the man you were with on Friday? My rage erupted. I heard the door close, but she did not come out to face me. She did not refute it, and I understood that seeing a divorce lawyer was unavoidable. After over 20 years of marriage, everything was crumbling down. I couldn't help but think of her as a poor decision. Doubt started to seep in. How long had she been unfaithful? Was he her first? Did I know him? Were the females really mine? Negative emotions raced through my mind as I felt the anguish of betrayal as part of the divorce proceedings. I insisted on a paternity test for the girls. It wasn't just for my own peace of mind, but also to make Katie feel embarrassed. I spent the rest of the night looking up divorce laws on the internet before falling asleep on the couch. What a way to celebrate my birthday! Asterisk. I awoke at a dismal 5:00 a.m. in my bedroom. Katie was sleeping soundly, cuddled up around my pillow. It was amusing how calm she appeared after how restless my night had been. Her bare figure, with only her underwear on, was stunning. It was a shame she was no longer mine. I knew I'd miss her. I hurriedly collected my clothes and took a shower, leaving the room without waking her. Jill waited for me in the corridor. "How awful are things, Daddy?" I exhaled. "This is as awful as it gets. Can you forgive her? I mean, it's simply forgetting a day." "Dad, she did not forget my birthday or Father's Day. I believe she's cheating on me." He gasped. "No, sweetie. I do not think she would." "But Dad, think about this. She's been acting strange recently. On Friday night, she dressed up and had her hair done. That was not for me. She shakes her head on Saturday and Sunday. She avoided me. She must have felt guilty or angry. When will she ever take you to the beach without me? It's always a family thing. What if it is not an affair? What if it was only once? Cannot you forgive her for that? I do not know." "Dad, she didn't act like she loved me. Once this weekend." "Dad, you should have seen Jenny's reaction when Grandma asked why she didn't call Grandpa on Father's Day. She screamed as she dropped the phone. No, so loud, we suspected something was wrong with Grandpa. He's okay. Mom was very upset. She cried on the floor. Jenny suggested we call an ambulance for her. We calmed her down, and she called you Jill. I am not sure what you want me to say. She does not love me. Cheating on your spouse is not an act of love, it's selfishness. Love should be selfless. When she approached another man, she pushed me away, she hugged me and cried. I bet it wasn't just any random guy. She must have been flirting or allowing him to flirt with her. There would have been intimate touches, possibly kissing and caressing. All of this led up to their first sexual encounter. All of your actions prior to sex are betraying your spouse. It is impossible to be in love with someone while also showing affection to someone else. Please do not divorce her. I have to go to work now. We will talk later." She entered Jenny's room, eager to join the conversation. They knew that no more secrets would exist within their family. How long would their family exist? Katie was too preoccupied at work to contact her, so she had a peaceful day. The only difference was the handling of Mrs. Accident paperwork. She'd get workman's compensation for her time off, and she hoped Missy didn't struggle too much. They knew little about her personal life, just that she was not married. Missy came in to sign the forms and complete her report with her left and struggling. She wrote it out for her. "How are things at home?" she asked. "This isn't good." She didn't confirm it when I brought up her affair. Darn it. "Bill, I apologize. I can tell you're hurting my ex-husband. Cheated on me when I was pregnant. I kicked him out before my daughter was even born. My mum was really upset with me. She basically called me a quitter." Wow. I found it strange when your mum talked about forgiving my wife last night. She was looking right at your father when she said it. Yeah, I noticed that too. I'm not sure which one did it, but it makes me think one of them wasn't faithful. I apologize. Do not worry about it. They seem happy, so they can live however they want. I've decided not to trust anyone who cheats me. 2, I agreed firmly. Katie wasn't home when I arrived from work. I suspected she was with her friend and felt worried. I drove to her workplace to check in the parking lot. I saw her car with her inside talking to someone. When she noticed me, she screamed no and tried to stop me from leaving. I drove away, feeling hurt and betrayed at home. Jenny and Jill were crying, begging me to stay. "Daddy, there must be a mistake," they said. "Girls, I saw something today. A woman had a man in her car. After work, she can't explain. They were just eating lunch. There's no innocent reason for being in the rear of the parking lot. With a man in her car. Dad, please don't split up our family." Jenny cried. "Honey, your mother broke up our family. This isn't my fault." I reassured them, giving them a kiss on the cheek. "I'll be in touch every day." I left them crying in the bedroom, then walked to the garage. As I drove out, I almost got struck by Katie, who pulled in like a bat out of hell. I shook my head and drove on. The following week was an excruciating nightmare. I ignored my wife's hourly calls for 3 days, deleting each message she left. After that, family members asked me to talk to her, but no one would clarify if she had cheated. Frustrated, I stopped taking calls from everyone except my girls, who ultimately realized my sincerity. At the conclusion of the week, I met with a lawyer. I desired a fair distribution of our assets. I intended to give my ex-wife the house until our daughters moved out and then sell it. My lawyer advised that I could receive more than half of the house proceeds due to my bigger down payment and monthly payments. However, I insisted on an equal divide. I felt alimony or maintenance was unavoidable, but to my relief, I discovered that because my wife had a steady salary, she would not want any financial assistance from me. This was the finest news I'd heard in a long time, because it meant I wouldn't have to compensate her for her affair. In the middle of it all, I found a hidden strength within myself. I stood firm in the face of her family's insults. I was determined to safeguard myself and my future, and I explored the court system looking for justice and fairness throughout it all. I remained firm, confident that the truth would prevail. She came to have only met with the child once, on the Friday before my birthday, and that is what she told. Everyone happened. I was deemed the problem for not enabling her to clarify without explanation. It would have been viewed as acceptable. My mother called me a coward for not defending my marriage. My wife's mother claimed we were, even because I was not there for her. At difficult times, the daughter suggested that I stay with the family to avoid scarring them for life. It was surreal. Despite my innocence, I was nevertheless held accountable, for the divorce tensions erupted when I required my girls to give me their saliva for a DNA test. They resisted until I lied, claiming it was a court order. Katie wrote a message to my store explaining her experience. She became engrossed in the attention of a young man, barely 21 years old. They had a brief meeting in the back seat of his automobile. However, the experience was underwhelming. Good looks do not always imply strong chemistry or speedy recovery. After discovering her with the young man, Katie asked him to keep away from her. However, the harm had been done as cheating. Once is sufficient to end a relationship. After obtaining I discovered that I did not need to show infidelity in order to get divorced. She had completed it herself, making the task easier. I wouldn't have to fight for irreconcilable differences or establish that we tried to save the marriage. It seems that karma was finally on my side when the court reviewed my suggested terms and the letter that confirmed the infidelity. He approved the divorce in 60 days. However, I found myself alone on a desolate island. I didn't speak with my ex-wife, and as a result, I was perceived as immature and a jerk. My mother and daughter both stopped talking to me. It hurt, but I knew I was on the correct side of the matter. I called my daughters every other day, but they never responded. I left voicemails to update them on my life and inquire about theirs. I accepted responsibility for our communication issues and made an effort to contact them on a regular basis. Regardless of how they felt, my routine changed. After I began seeing Missy for coffee on Sundays, we first met at a neighborhood cafe when we happened to run into each other. Missy and her daughter, Mia, reside nearby and went for a walk. I invited them to join me while Mia watched cartoons on my iPad bill. "I am confident your girls will come around," she said. "They are still young and receptive to new ideas. So there is hope. I hope you're correct. I only hope they haven't fully shifted their perspectives." The following week, I went to the same cafe and was reading when I heard, "Hey, stranger." I looked up to see the two girls' friendly faces. They joined me at my table. "Is this a common occurrence for you, or do you follow us?" one of them inquired with a grin. "No, I just live nearby and enjoy drinking coffee and reading on Sunday mornings. It is good to have some peaceful time." We talked about the neighborhood and had several laughs before saying farewell. We didn't make a conscious decision to gather every Sunday, but we did. I enjoyed her company, and Tiny Mia was delightful. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk on the day of our daughter's school musical. I knocked on my former house's front door. My wife responded, and it was obvious she had been sobbing. She didn't say anything. She simply motioned me inside. "Are the girls home?" I asked. "They're seeing a musical at school." "I understand why you're here. I am anticipated you to come over today, is this?" So I asked, smiling, "Did you wait until it was too late to stop it?" "Yes," I answered. "I knew you'd try to persuade me to reconsider and give our marriage another opportunity, but I couldn't let that happen, Bill. You profoundly injured me, and I will never forget it. I cannot believe you are keeping this against me. It was only one mistake. Why can't you see how much I loved you?" I attempted to explain. He laughed. "Was it love when you flirted with that guy? When were you hiding something from me? When did you spend all of your time with him instead of me? When you left me alone for my birthday?" I started crying. "I never intended for any of this to happen. I loved you too." He shakes his head. "You broke my heart, Katie. You turned my family against me. I'm not sure I can ever forgive you for that. This is your responsibility for being unreasonable." I took a big breath and spoke gently. "We should all work together to fix this problem and move forward. Because of your acts, they may grow up believing you are the hero and I am the villain. But it isn't that simple. It's more than simply one instance." I gently pushed her away, saying we can't keep living this way. We need to go on and seek happiness elsewhere. I left the room with a mixture of sadness and relief. Several weeks later, Missy knocked on my office door. Got a second bill, of course, come in. I smiled, expecting that she had good news. Missy hesitated to speak. "Bill, I was wondering if it is against corporate policy to date other employees." I grimaced, disappointed that she brought up the matter rather than responding to my previous comment. Our organization has a stringent anti-harassment policy in place. This policy assures that any troubles that arise between co-workers as a result of a breakup are their responsibility, not the company's. She smiled. "I'm happy. Our policy is clear, by the way. I put my address and phone number on file for you. I hope you can join Mia and me for supper tomorrow night." I appreciated her gesture and looked forward to dinner. "Hello, Dad. Checking in. I hope everything is good with you and your sister. In my universe, the usual things happen, except that I met someone at work for dinner. I love and miss you. Please call me soon. Bye." I realized leaving that message could cause some uncertainty, but I didn't explain I had to move on, and I was looking forward to meeting someone new. Missy was a gorgeous woman with an even more stunning personality. Her daughter was precocious and adorable, and I'd already met her parents. I felt as if I was finally making progress. Katie texted me just 15 minutes later. "I can't believe you are already moving on. You're a genuine surprise." I chuckled as I read that I never thought she was that delusional. It was ridiculous to expect me to sit and worry about her. Some people may be angry because their marriage has ended owing to an unfaithful partner, but that was not me. I was young enough at 41 to find love again. In fact, I was still young enough to have more children. If I wanted, that was something to consider. Missy was in her early 30s. She may want more children in the future. I knew it was too early to think about such things, but as a single mother, Missy might value those qualities in a potential partner. I'm confident she was looking for a husband, not just a plaything. However, I wouldn't mind being her plaything. It'd been months since we had been intimate. The following evening, I showered and trimmed my facial hair before dressing, casually satisfied with my appearance. I admired my fit physique that showed no signs of aging. I am satisfied with my job and financial stability. I felt good about my chances in the dating world. As I considered dating a younger woman like Missy, I realized I had overlooked the nuances of courtship married life, provided a consistent routine with familiarity breeding. Comfort, hand-holding, kiss-kissing, and intimate moments all expected. As I navigated this new chapter, I realized how important it was for me to rediscover the art of seduction and the joy of exploring intimacy. Again, I had a thorough understanding of my ex-wife's sexual preferences. I knew when she wanted a passionate or gentle touch and where to stimulate her for the most pleasure. I hoped that my next partner shared my interests or was willing to discuss them. I worried that I wasn't ready for dating and had rushed into it. I arrived at my townhouse with a gift in hand, a bottle of wine flowers and a stuffed animal. I hope these will endear me to her. She opened the door. I was surprised by her appearance. Her curly red hair framed her face, and she wore the perfect amount of makeup. She wore a modest sundress that came just below her knees, emphasizing her legs. She was barefoot, with hot pink nail polish on her fingers and toes. She asked playfully, "Do I look absolutely?" I responded, not regretting it. She laughed and accepted the flowers and wine for me. "I'm watching TV. You can say hello. She'll love the bear." She went into the kitchen, and I knelt next to Mia. "Hello, sweetheart. I've brought you a bear." She paused, then her face lit up in a smile as she took the bear. She ran off to show her friend Missy Bear in arms. She reminisced about Jenny and Jill's childhood days, realizing it had been a while since she last spoke to them. She missed them deeply. "What's wrong?" Missy inquired, pulling her out of her thoughts. "Nothing," she replied, forcing a smile, "just remembering my daughters when they were Mia's age." Missy asked, "Is everything okay now?" "Not really," she sighed. "Katie turned the girls against me, and I can't get them to see me. I still leave the messages every other day, though I'm sorry." Bill Missy sympathized. "It must be tough for you." "It is," she agreed. "I know they listened to my messages. I told them about our date tonight, and Katie texted me, calling me and jerk for moving on." "So quickly, is everything okay?" she asked, concern in her eyes. "You seem a bit uneasy." "No, just that. I'm not used to such forwardness," I admitted, blushing slightly, "but I appreciate your honesty." She smiled, her eyes twinkling. "Well, let's enjoy our dinner, and maybe we can chat more while we're on the couch." "Wow, I didn't realize how much buzz your divorce has created around here," she said with a smile. "It's no surprise that many of the single ladies are taking notice of you. You're an attractive, fit man who's smart, stable, and we all know how you value loyalty." I felt a sense of pride as I sat down at her table. "I'm glad I got here early," she mentioned. I held her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "I appreciate you too, Mia. Not wanting to be left out chimed in, said she's my favorite. Me too." I agreed, the Slurpee or the better. My eyes caught sight of the can of Parmesan cheese on the table, and I added, "And don't forget the extra stinky cheese." She giggled and corrected me. "It's not stinky cheese. It's Parma. "Stinky cheese," I said, holding the can to my nose and pretending to wrinkle my face. "Wow, that's quite a strong smell." Missy rolled her eyes as I passed the can to Mia. She took a sniff, smiled, and poured some onto her spaghetti. We kept the dinner conversation light, focusing on Mia's preschool class and her friends. She happily shared stories, and I listened intently. Missy watched us smiling, but remained quiet throughout the conversation as we continued to chat. I noticed Missy getting up to clear the table. "Let me help?" I offered. She shook her head and replied, "No, she hasn't told you about her favorite TV shows yet." She chuckled as Mia excitedly told her about her favorite cartoons, once Mia was asleep. Missy joined me on the couch. I handed her a glass of juice, and she smiled as she propped her feet on the ottoman. Being a mom is amazing, but this is my favorite of the day too. I put my arm around her, and she leaned into me. I can only imagine how tough it is with 2 kids. I sighed. It's definitely a challenge, but we're trying our best. I hope they'll come around eventually. Missy kissed my cheek. You're a great dad. Keep working on your relationship with them. She set her glass down and sat back. Bill, I've already expressed my feelings for you, and at my age, I don't want to play games. I'd like to continue seeing you, including inviting you into my bedroom. She held up her shushing finger. I understand you want to be a gentleman, but that's not what I'm looking for. I want to be clear. I don't want to be your casual partner or friend with benefits. I'm seeking an exclusive relationship as a mother. I want a husband for myself and my daughter, and I believe you could be that person. I've noticed that conversations like this often lead to the guy running away. I'm not assuming you're that, but I want to give you a choice. If you want to explore your single life and have fun, I won't be the one to hold you back, but if you're interested in giving our potential future a shot, I'm all in. I was surprised by her words. Wow, did you plan that out, or was it just off the top of your head? She frowned, thinking I was questioning her sincerity. Missy, we've worked together for 3 years. These recent coffee meetings have been enjoyable. I've always been a family-oriented person, and I'm not sure how to be single. The idea of dating is really scary for me. If my wife had been faithful, I'd still be a happily married family man. I don't want to play the field. She smiled and took my hand. You're kind funny, and you make a great spaghetti. I laughed and playfully slapped her shoulder. I'd like to be your friend. Let's work together to create something positive for all of us, including your little girl. We didn't share a special moment that night. Although I wanted to express my feelings more, I thought taking things slow would be best for both of us. She seemed to care deeply, but I believe taking our time would be better for everyone's comfort. One day, I received a wonderful opportunity when an application arrived for a manager position I had been looking to fill. I never knew the punk kid who ended my marriage, but when he applied for my overnight manager job, I remembered him I had and hired him without him knowing. It was me on his second night of work. I waited in the parking lot. I placed a 40-inch TV from a competitor in his car's back seat. The TV matched the one in our stockroom, and I knew it was missing in the morning. I timed my arrival to coincide with his shift ending. I walked him out to his car, chatting about his team as we approached his car. I noticed a TV in the back seat. Jeff, did you buy the TV before your shift? I asked, pretending to be shocked. No, Bill. That's not mine. Don't know how it got there, Jeff. We need to go back into the store. Bill checked the cameras reluctantly. I agreed, all right, bring the TV. We returned to the store, and the kid was visibly scared. The store didn't have overnight security since it closed at night and had a night crew instead. Cameras were installed everywhere, with only managers having access to the room. Controlling them, a camera faced the door, but it was above a stairwell doorway. The issue was reported to corporate security years ago, but it remained unresolved to disable the system. One could open the stairwell door, reach up, cover the camera, and unplug the computer. Running the system when I let him into the room and noticed the computer wasn't functioning. He became frantic, vehemently denying any wrongdoing. As I contacted the authorities, according to protocol, ultimately, the young man received a misdemeanor conviction and avoided jail time. I had wished for a longer sentence, but the stolen TV wasn't valuable enough. Instead, he faced an extensive community service requirement and a hefty fine, which, surprisingly, exceeded my TV's cost. A felony on his record made finding a retail job challenging, but it didn't compensate for the risks I took as a silver lining corporate, provided a long-awaited security upgrade, including parking lot cameras on a chilly Saturday morning. A week after a dinner meeting, he noticed Missy waiting in her car to stay warm after parking next to her. She greeted him with a warm kiss. "Are we still on for dinner tonight?" she inquired. "Absolutely." He replied, "I've got something special I'm making for us. You won't want to miss it." "I wouldn't," she said, excitement in her voice. Just then Katie appeared from behind him, interrupting their conversation. "Excuse me?" "Missy?" shouted her tone, revealing her annoyance. "Katie, what do you want?" he asked, trying to maintain a calm demeanor. "I've been trying to reach you. Did you block my number?" Katie inquired, her voice tinged with curiosity. "Yes, after our many conversations about me making a mistake, I had enough." "What do you want?" "I want to discuss our daughter's future. We need to sort out college plans. They can choose their own paths. I've ensured they have the financial support they need. I'd like to be involved, but since you've caused a rift, they won't talk to me, they worry you won't follow through with college payments. Of course, I'll cover the costs. I still care for them, despite the divorce." Missy chuckled. Katie frowned and said, "It's not my fault you couldn't accept my one mistake, only once because you weren't discreet about it. I addressed it right away. Regardless, we should still be a family and work together on this. You're mistaken. You were involved in the events that led to the end of my marriage, the rift with my family, and my daughter's disapproval. I assure you, if I ever find out about a romantic interest of yours, you'll never experience a second date. No one wants to date someone with a history of betrayal unless they are aware of your past and seeking a casual encounter." I walked towards the store. I heard voices behind me and turned to see Missy confronting Katie with her finger in Katie's face. "Keep away from my man. You discarded him, and I picked up the pieces. I rushed back and separated them enough. Missy, she's not worth the conflict. You heard me, woman?" Missy shouted at Katie before moving towards the store. "Please leave, Katie. Our difficulties are in the past, and that's all your fault." I left her in tears beside the cars. I tried to catch up to Missy, who was panting. I took her hand, and she glanced up smiling as she calmed down. "I'm sorry, Bill. I must have been a touch overprotective. Well, it's always wonderful to have folks showing interest in you," I replied with a smile. We laughed and entered the building to focus on our task. Later that day, I received a call from my mum. When I said hello, she made an odd noise, and the phone was cut off. I heard a thud, but the line went dead. I hung up and dialed again, only to receive no answer. I called 911 to request an ambulance for my mum's home, and they informed me that another call had already been placed from her location I concerned and told and to watch out for me as I had to depart. She agreed, and as I ran through the store, I dashed by Missy, who called after me. I didn't stop and drove straight to my car. When I got to my mum's house, the ambulance was departed, so I followed it. I arrived at the hospital and realized that my mother had already departed before the ambulance arrived. She must have lost consciousness during our phone talk. I sat in the emergency department lobby, crying, remembering the last thing my mother said to me. What was she planning to say? I was wondering if it would have been, "I'm in trouble. I'm suffering a heart attack. I apologize." Missy called my phone. "Hey, my mother just died. Bill, I sincerely apologize. Thank you, but I will not be good company tonight. Do not worry. I will be with you. Do you need me? Please let me come over." "All right." Yeah, I explained. Not wanting to be alone. I was happy. She decided to join me. "I am on my way home. Meet me there when you've gotten off." Okay, see you shortly. I stopped the conversation and walked to my car. Instead of heading home, I visited my old house. I needed to tell my girls whether or not they wanted to see me as I approached. I saw both of the girls' cars in the driveway and on the side. I never expected the first words we'd say to each other to be news like this. I wasn't concerned that I hadn't been there in a while. I entered the passcode for the garage door opener and stepped inside. I was happy that Katie's automobile wasn't there. I did not feel like dealing with her. The living room and kitchen were unoccupied, so I went upstairs to the bedrooms. Dad Jill exclaimed when I entered her room, "What do you want?" Jenny yelled, appearing behind me, "Have you come to beg?" "Well, you may visit Grandma. I had a heart attack and died this morning," I remarked, interrupting her. They both gasped. I wanted to tell you in person. I'll get punished for it." I exited the room, closed the door, and departed. I heard Jenny cry for me to wait, but I dashed to my car and sped away from the side of a little frozen lake as the water began to thaw. A woman reflected on the joyful times she had spent with her daughters. She sat on a picnic seat, feeling both sad and confused. The woman's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of steps. She turned to find her ex-husband, Katie, and their daughters approaching her. The sight of them triggered a range of emotions as she attempted to comprehend what she had done to drive them away. As they grew closer, the mother wondered if there was a way to mend her daughters' shattered relationships and restore serenity to their lives. "How did you find me here?" I asked, turning around to face the water. "You did not cancel our Discover a Phone app sync," Katie responded. "Bill, I'm sorry about your mother." "Yeah," I spit. "I apologize." "Or are you sorry you turned her against me and she died before we could reconcile?" She said nothing. "Leave me alone. I can't handle your shoot." "Right now," I continued, "I will never forgive you for what you did to me." Her last comments, too, were that she would not talk to me again unless I manned up and dropped the divorce. She hung up on me without even saying she loved me. "I'm so sorry, Bill, for everything." I heard her go away, and Jenny added, "Daddy, we're sorry too. Please forgive us for being—" I turned in. My girls both lunged at me and hugged me. We cried in each other's arms for a moment. "It's not my fault, ladies. Your mother's actions are why we are no longer together." Jill spoke up. "We apologize. Dad, we believe you should forgive her. She loves you. It's quite clear. Not enough to keep you faithful to me." "Jill, I apologize, gals. I'm so sorry." We hugged again while Katie watched from her car. "Girls, I really need you. You'll leave for college shortly and I'll miss you. We are wasting so much time." "We got it, Dad." Jenny spoke. "We will not keep you out anymore." Jill added, "And we wish your mother had the chance to do the same." "Dad, can we come to your new house? We have not seen yet. Maybe we can get some pizza." "Of course, tell your mother, and let's go." When I pulled into my driveway, I noticed Mrs. Carr. I'd forgotten she was coming over. "Girls, it appears that you are going to meet Missy. Is she your friend?" they asked in unison, which made me smile. "Yeah, I mean, we were just getting to know each other. Look at him." Jenny smiled. "It's very sweet." They waved goodbye and entered the house. They greeted Missy enthusiastically, and I could tell she was a little surprised. "Girls, let her be. Move it inside, and I will introduce you all." They waved goodbye and entered the house. They greeted Missy enthusiastically, and I could tell Missy was surprised. "Girls, let her be. Move it inside, and I will introduce you all." They waved goodbye and entered the house. They greeted Missy enthusiastically, and I could tell Missy was surprised. "Girls, let her be. Move it inside, and I will introduce you all." They kissed my cheek and entered my garage while I approached a slightly perplexed Missy. "Sorry about that," I said as she opened the door. She smiled broadly and kissed my cheek. Your daughter is all right. Let's introduce you to everyone. I hope I am presentable. I reassured her. They'll think you're wonderful. We walked in, and I said, Jenny, Jill, meet Missy. They gave her a warm hug. Jenny exclaimed, You look great. Jill added, Great job, Dad. Missy laughed, and I was taken off guard now. Let's take a quick tour of the house before preparing for Grandma's service. My wife said, I'll order some pizza. Perfect, I agreed. The girls CED with delight. I chose to postpone making the calls to inform people about my mother's death until the next day. I intended to publish an obituary in the Monday newspaper and post the service details on Facebook. After visiting the funeral home on Sunday after dinner, we spent hours telling Missy stories about my mother. My daughters have not so subtly shared some embarrassing stories about me. For Mrs. Amusement, it was not my fault I slipped and fell into the lake because the pier was wet. I insist it was already after 10 a.m. when I realized it, girls. We've spent more time together than we intended, and it's getting late. They pouted and inquired, Can we stay the night? I don't have beds for the guest rooms yet. I tell you what, I'll pick you up in the morning and we'll go out to breakfast. Okay, if you're up to it, I could use some help. Figuring out what to do with Grandma's stuff too. Sure, Dad will help with whatever you need. Thanks, Missy. Want to go for a ride? She's staying with my parents. Jill jumped in. Who's Mia? Mia is my 4-year-old daughter. They both squealed and Jenny said, My God, I can't wait to meet her. Missy laughed at their excitement and said someday soon, I promise. All right, let's head out. They're wonderful girls, Missy said as we sat on the couch shortly after returning to my house. I'm glad you were able to get back together with them. I let a deep breath. I feel the same way, it's just hard losing her. She nestled into my embrace, and we both drifted off to sleep when I awoke. She had covered us with a nice blanket and was still snuggled against me. I wished for that type of closeness. With someone I tenderly kissed her head and apologized. I fell asleep on you, she whispered. It's fine, sweetheart. You had a tough day. Would you like to come with me and the girls for breakfast? I asked, as long as Mia can come too. My parents had plans this morning. Of course. The girls will adore having her with us. I picked up Mia from her mum's place and took her to IHOP to meet my girls as soon as they spotted her. They embraced her with laughter and compassion. Mia laughed and grinned, enjoying their amusing antics until she blurted, I got to pee. My girls instantly offered to take her to the bathroom. As we sat down, I joked with Missy about whether she thought our daughters would get along. She lightly slapped my shoulder and kissed my cheek, emphasizing her desire for a long-term friendship. Although it was early in our relationship, her optimism was both endearing and little unsettling. As we dined together, Mia and my girls had a spirited talk about numerous issues. Mia clearly enjoyed conversing and was really interested in knowing about my girls' life. My girls, who were seasoned babysitters, were familiar with all of the popular children's shows and movies, which allowed them to connect with Mia. Furthermore, they got along well with Missy, and there was no hatred or tension. When Mia started seeing her, my girls had refused to speak with me for months following my divorce, so their quick acceptance of Mia puzzled me. I decided to ask my daughters about their change in attitude after a long day of making phone calls, cleaning my mother's house, and visiting the funeral home. I finally had the opportunity to unwind. The girls returned to my house for dinner, but Missy and Mia parted ways after breakfast. Missy thought it would be too upsetting for us and wanted to save Mia the anguish of questioning everything as we went through my mother's things. Dad, do you like Missy? Jenny asked, unexpectedly. Well, we've only met a couple times outside of work. I explained it's too early to say we're in love. Okay, Father. Jill said it with a humorous tone. Have you ever seen those ancient cartoons in which the female's eyelids quiver and they fold their hands near to their cheeks while looking at their prints? I nodded, taking a bite off my pizza as she bats her eyes at you. It's as if hearts are flying about her head. Jill went on before I could deny it. They both looked at each other, then at me, and said, "We like her." My joy at seeing my daughters morphed into anger. I placed my slice on my plate, cleaned my hands, and proceeded to the sink. I leaned against the counter, facing away from them, attempting to relax Dad. Jenny asked with curiosity in her voice, "Why have you both pretended not to care about me all these time?" I questioned them. What did I do to make you believe it was acceptable to push me away? I gazed at them, my eyes filled with anguish. How many times have I cried after leaving you a message and knowing you didn't care about responding? Jill hesitated before speaking up. Mum told us if you feared you were losing us, you would reconcile with her and we could be a family again. We're deeply sorry. I turned to face them. Jenny swiftly hugged me after she noticed the tear on my cheek. Dad, please forgive us. We were told that you had left us and refused to pay for college because we wanted you to stay with her. She claimed the communications were only for the divorce to make it appear as if you were being polite to the judge. Did you actually do that? And you believe her father think about it? We were with her every day, hearing her justify her one-time error against the 20 years of love we had shared. We felt you were being unjust. Do you want your boyfriend to cheat on you? There was no response. Where would you draw the line? Fine, 1 time, 2 times, 5 times. Tell me. We hugged, and the embrace provided comfort. I felt guilty. I'm sorry, children. I have missed you so much. After they had all expressed their feelings for me, I said, it's time to get you back to school. You have classes starting tomorrow. Make sure your teacher knows about the memorial service and funeral. You will need some time off this week. We hugged once more, and as I watched them leave, my heart warmed. I gazed to the sky and said, you didn't have to return them, Mum. But thanks. I will miss you. Weeks have always been difficult for me, because I am uncomfortable sitting in a room with a dead person. My mum's wake was particularly difficult. I approached the casket several times during the day. Looking at her, she appeared calm. I was glad she'd be reunited with my father. Several years ago, he lost his battle with cancer. He requested a unique memorial service without a wake, because he disliked the idea of people gathering around a corpse. Odd, meanwhile, his mother had meticulously planned her own service, including selecting her coffin. All he had to do was set the date and handle minor details, like room setup and ceremony. He admired her foresight as he stood at the front of the room. One of his mother's friends approached him. His daughters, accompanied by Katie, then entered the room and each gave him a heartfelt, tearful hug. Katie said a prayer before placing a treasured photograph in the casket. The image showed me Katie and my mother with our arms around each other, Katie holding our babies. Her smile was infectious. As I gently placed the photograph beside her hands, I couldn't hold back the tears. The minister led the prayer service, and while Kate remained in the back. Her warm connection with everyone was clear. The family sat in the front row of chairs, as per protocol. The girls were on one side, and Misty was on the other. But some didn't feel right. I turned to see Katie in the back, wiping her tears. It didn't feel right leaving her there. My mother would have wanted Katie to be up front as well. I moved to the back and took Katie's hand. Come to the front. You don't need to hide back here. She sobbed, hugged me, and whispered, thank you. We walked to the front, and Uncle John gave her the seat next to my daughter. You are a good friend, Bill Missy murmured lightly, kissing my cheek. It was an unusual sensation to hold hand while my ex-wife was nearby. I hoped I wouldn't regret it, and that it wouldn't cause any issues later, as we were bidding farewell to the last guests. Katie approached me with Missy beside me. I wondered how Katie would react. I hoped she would respect my mother's wishes and not cause any trouble. Thank you for inviting me to be part of the family today. Bill, it means more to me than you can imagine. She continued, I'd be honored to ride in the limousine with you, the girls, and Missy tomorrow. She pulled me into a tight hug, and tears streamed down her face. I felt Mrs. Hand gently touch my back, and I couldn't help but worry about a potential confrontation. Well, Katie said, breaking away from the embrace, if you don't need anything else from me, I'll head out. I shook my head, and she offered a brief smile to Missy. I'm glad you're here for him. You may not know this, but he was a Ems boy. It's going to be tough when he realizes she's gone. With that, she left the room. Missy wrapped her arm around me and said, Let's get you home. I walked into my house relieved the day was over. Missy was sitting at the kitchen table, and I handed her a cold beer. I think everything with Katie went better than you expected. You handled it well, she commented as we enjoyed our drinks. I'm relieved. I thought she might cause trouble with you. The girls must have helped keep things calm. We just need to get through today and everything will be okay. I hoped she was right. I couldn't shake the feeling that Katie wouldn't handle interacting with Missy. Well, maybe I was just being paranoid. Will you stay with me tonight? I asked. She smiled and held my hand. You couldn't get rid of me, even if you tried. We didn't engage in any intimate activity, but she spooned with me, and it was the best sleep I'd had since the divorce. You're watching me closely. I promise I won't misuse your ability by starting a fight, Katie said as we waited for the prayer to begin. I know that I replied, even though it wasn't true. It's just unsettling for me. She scoffed and inquired, How do you think it feels for me? I'm the outsider here. I furrowed my brow. No one sees you that way, especially not today. I'm truly sorry, Bill. I wish I could erase what happened. I wish. She began to cry and quickly retreated to the restroom. It's tough on all of us, Bill. My mum's friend, Jean, consoled, patting my shoulder. Your mum was a wonderful woman, and we'll all miss her. I kissed her cheek and expressed my gratitude, relieved that Katie had my mum's cover for her emotional breakdown. After the funeral, we gathered at my mum's favorite Polish restaurant for the post-funeral meal. The room was filled to capacity, and Katie appeared uneasy as she searched for a seat. I approached her once more, taking her hand and guiding her to the table where I sat with Missy and my daughters. Katie, no matter what happens, will always be family. Because of the divorce, a tear rolled down her cheek as she sat and expressed her gratitude. I don't remember when I got over the pain she caused, but it felt like I was finally past it. Time moved forward. The girls went to college and called me every week. Missy and I are still a couple, and I'm thinking about proposing. Soon Katie and I don't talk much, but we're polite. She's moving on to dating a divorced dad of one of the girls' friends. He's a good man. I hope they find happiness. Some could argue I should have forgiven her for what she did, but I can't find it in my heart to do so. In the eyes of some, that might make me a bad guy, but I'm at peace with myself. Here is the next story. Johnny, a college graduate from a well-off family. He's tall, over 6 feet, and a bit over 200 lb. Despite his size, he never played sports. Instead, he focused on his education, winning a scholarship and graduating at the top of his class. In the early years of college, I wanted to pursue a career in the pharmaceutical sector. My current position involves visiting several medical establishments, including hospitals, medical centers, and multiple doctors' offices. This line of employment requires me to interact with various professionals. I regularly travel for 3 to 4 days a week and stay in motels While I enjoy my profession, I sometimes feel lonely. I always believed I would be married by now. Unfortunately, my heavy travel schedule makes it tough to pursue long-term relationships. One day, I went to a medical clinic for a usual exam. As I waited, I observed a lovely receptionist distributing medicine samples. She was dressed professionally elegantly, but not uncomfortably. We struck up a discussion while I waited for my regular nurse. I learned her name was Mary Waters. She was 24 years old, having graduated from a state college the previous year. During my next visit, I asked her out, and she accepted. We ate dinner together on our first date. We continued to get to know each other better while waiting for our meals. I told stories regarding my college experience. I wasn't particularly wild in my youth, but I enjoyed mingling. I treated all of my dates with respect and never took advantage of them. My parents instilled these principles in me from an early age. As for me, I spent the majority of my time studying, but it never felt like a struggle. He stopped awaiting her response. She smiled. I have never found a job that genuinely interests me, so I work as a receptionist, but I have always enjoyed spending time with my sorority sisters and their friends. Over 4 years is a lot of girls. He questioned about how you use your free time. She responded, I still hang out with my former classmates. We frequent lounges to listen to music, drink and dance. It's a terrific way to unwind and remain in touch with pals. Is your curiosity piqued? He asked, do you have someone significant in your life? Johnny, I do not have a significant partner. I usually get out with my pals, some of whom are married. However, we still enjoy each other's company. Time passed, and it was time to leave. Johnny had a thought. I want to see Mary again. Johnny, Mary, would you like to join me for dinner? Another time, Mary. Johnny, I would enjoy that. They agreed to meet while Johnny was in town. However, barely 60. My distant, he would have more free time on business travels. Our first few dates consisted of food and a movie. We exchanged a goodnight kiss, but nothing more. She had a contagious grin and a positive attitude for our third date. She suggested a dancing venue. She looked lovely when I picked her up, and I could feel myself falling for her. After a few hours of dining and dancing, I invited her to my motel room, which she accepted upon arrival. I tuned the television to a music station. We sat on the couch, and she placed her legs in my lap. I carefully massaged her ankles and feet, which she appeared to love, as our kisses became more passionate. I asked if she was interested in taking our relationship to the next level. Absolutely. I am extremely appreciative for your kindness. We stood up, and I helped her take off her top and bottom, leaving her in a lovely pink top and bottom. Our connection deepened, and I slowly removed her top. She wore wonderful clothes that was not overly ostentatious, but well-tailored. I've seen numerous ensembles, and while they all have their appeal, none can match Mary's beautiful, faultless choice of attire. She had a perfect figure and exquisite outfit, which one couldn't help but admire and treasure. As she settled into the bed, I swiftly took off my clothes, leaving only my boxers. She laid in the center of the king-sized bed, while I slowly removed her underpants. Her well-groomed pubic area included a delicate landing strip pattern. Johnny, please, she pleaded, experience my intimate area. I paused for a bit before agreeing. Wow, yes. She whimpered as I pressed my lips against her. I appreciate it. Do not stop. It feels great. I proceeded to lick and kiss her, finally leading her into a state of tremendous ecstasy. Her juices dripped down my chin as I came up beside her and kissed her softly. I reached into the nightstand and retrieved a condom. Can you put it on for me? She asked quietly. I handed it to her while leaning back. She put the condom on me in an unexpected and novel way. The encounter was so pleasant that I was almost at my peak. When she got on top, the sends became more intense. I softly stroked her, and she reacted with passion. We reached our climax together. She snuggled close and whispered, "Will you stay with me tonight?" I agreed. Yes, I would love to. We turned off the lights and nestled in one another's arms during the night. I felt a soft touch. I was startled to realize her hands were on me. I'm in a daze. I put on a condom and slowly approached her as we connected our bodies. Responded, and we had an intimate time together. We both felt relief, and within minutes, we were back to sleep the next morning. She awakened and went to the bathroom to shower when she reappeared wrapped in a towel. I changed into my clothes and made a cup of coffee for us. We exchanged a gentle kiss. I then took a shower, and when I joined her, she was already dressed, ensuring she had clean clothes. I took her home briefly before going out to breakfast. That modest morning meal signaled the start of our amazing friendship. When I was in town, we met for dinner every 2 weeks. We stayed in touch by phone while I was abroad. One day I asked her how she spent her free time. She suggested going out with her college mates and neighborhood establishments. Mary always appeared professional when we were together, except during private occasions. We went to museums, plays, and concerts together and enjoyed them. She was an excellent companion, willing to join in whatever activity I offered. One weekend, she introduced me to her wonderful parents. They also had another daughter, Beth, who was 22 years old and lived at home. I had not met her, but Mary described her as a wonderful sister. Beth worked in an insurance firm when I discussed my career. Mary and I continued talking before leaving for supper a few weeks later. Mary and I dined with her parents to commemorate their 25th wedding anniversary. Beth also joined us. We had a lovely supper, and it was a pleasure to meet her. Beth was as attractive as Mary, but appeared more serious. She smiled at me during the lunch, but her intentions were unclear. I said my goodbyes to everyone and gave Mary a gentle kiss on the way home. While her parents watched, I could not quit thinking about Beth. Something felt odd. I got a call for a meeting on Monday. It was odd since it occurred in an insurance office rather than a medical building where I generally received calls. I scheduled a midday appointment, despite the rarity of calls from non-medical offices. I made my way there. I had plenty of time to think. I considered Mary, who appeared flawless, and then Beth, who was simply stunning. When I entered the office, I noticed Beth at the receptionist's desk. "Beth, were you the one who called me? What can I do for John? I need to talk about my sister and best friend Mary. She means a lot to me. Let's grab some lunch and talk. Nice to meet you." "Beth, I am Johnny. I am here to listen to whatever you want to say." Beth notified her boss about a potential delay, and we headed to a lively yet pleasant restaurant. We chose a basic lunch, and she began speaking. "Johnny, I care about you and want you to be happy. I know you enjoy Mary, and she looks fantastic when she's with you, but I have to be honest with you. When she's with me, she talks about how your relationship isn't always great. She admits a feeling pressed to do things she is uncomfortable with. I hope this information helps you make a decision regarding her. Nothing. Save Mary appears to have another side. She's always been a bit mysterious in college. She discovered a group of pals who shared her enthusiasm for adventure and fun. She spends the weeks. She isn't with you, exploring the globe with her other buddies. It's difficult to believe, I understand. As we ate lunch, I couldn't help but think about Mary. Her enigmatic personality made her all the more appealing. I became increasingly fascinated about her. I'll tell you where she'll be this weekend. Keep it a secret from her. You will see a different side to her. She mentioned a group trip to the Bahamas with her pals, and she wants you to join them in a week or so. She will try to persuade you to go. Remember, this is what the majority of girls desire in a relationship. Perhaps I misunderstood your desires. The places and activities you enjoy with Mary may be what you both want. Just make sure you understand what you're getting into. I'm not sure if Mary's parents know about her secret life. No, she hides it expertly. I discovered it when I went to the same college as Mary, and she and her pals tried to include me. I told them I had no interest in life sharing this information on Mary. With you required a significant amount of effort on my part, but you seem like someone I could trust, and I didn't want to see you suffer. I should explain that Mary has been considering a modeling or acting career. She and a few buddies are planning a vacation to Hollywood next month, if things don't work out for you, after eating lunch. I left Beth offered her employment and headed to my next appointment. Despite Mary's pleasant demeanor, I found myself reflecting on the scenario later that evening. I could not help but wonder why Beth had revealed so much about her sister on Friday. Beth called and told me the location of Mary and her friend's strange gathering. The next day, in a nearby county curiosity piqued, I decided to drive there and see the events develop. I went to the lounge Beth recommended. It was a little dilapidated. I didn't expect Mary to frequent such a place. The second level provided a view of the entire downstairs area. Tuck tables, booths, and a dance floor occupied the space. Many of the guests appeared to be rough around the edges, having worked at the steel factory. Fortunately, I wore pants and a casual top because no one was dressed officially. I was enjoying my second beer when a large crowd entered. At least 12 people, if not more, were present. I noticed Mary right away. She was dressed somewhat provocatively. Her skirt came almost to her knees, and she was not wearing a bra. The mixed gathering of men and women sat at different tables and ordered drinks. There was no live music, but they kept the jukebox running. Mary and her companions got up to dance, not holding back. They moved freely and confidently, grabbing the attention of onlookers. Guys joined them, and the environment got more active with playful interactions. People were dancing close together, playfully touching one another. One man danced with Mary during a slow song, and they became fairly close when they sat down. One of her male kissed her and grasped her waist, which made her smile. I decided it was time to depart. I descended the stairs and exited by the back door. I needed some time to clear my mind. Mary and I had plans for the upcoming week, but I was hesitant to confront her. I did not want to include Beth in our chat on Monday. I was on the road when Mary called Johnny. I got 2 free tickets to a weekend cruise. I invited Beth to come, but she claimed she couldn't get time off work. Who else is going? I inquired. Some of my friends will be there, so you'll have a great opportunity to meet them. We will have our own room. I would love to go, I responded. We agreed on a time for me to pick her up on Thursday and drive her to the dock. I wasn't sure what we'd do on the boat, but I might share a special moment with Mary. One last time, as soon as I picked her up, she appeared more relaxed and open than usual. We arrived at the cruise ship with plenty of time to spare and explored until we discovered our cabin. Who gave you the tickets again? I inquired. One of my friends got a few tickets through their job. I have some surprises for you that I believe you will enjoy. I was curious about the captain, so we went to the send-off party. We met her, and she introduced me as a good friend. 2 others, they greeted me warmly. Mary relaxed, so we went to the lounge to enjoy the band. They recognized Mary, but the men were too close for comfort. She looked at me, but did not respond. I went to play slots and won some money later. I looked for Mary, who was still conversing with her friends at a delightful dinner buffet. We ate delicious food before moving to the lounge to listen to the band. Mary's friends were warm and welcoming, dancing and having a good time. I noticed Mary chatting with a few men throughout the evening. As I began to feel extremely tired, I suspected that my drink had been tampered with. I informed Mary that I was going to the cabin for some rest. I fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow. When I awoke in the early morning, I found myself naked in bed with Mary, who was also naked. I couldn't remember what had happened between us, or whether we had done anything at all curious. I reached over and gently touched Mary's shoulder, looking for signs of intimacy. I couldn't remember anything from the previous night, but it appeared that someone had been with her. My head was pounding, and I suspected that someone had spiked my drink after I showered and dressed. I went on a walk around the ship. When I returned to my cabin, Mary emerged from the bathroom looking fresh and clean. "Hello, lover," she greeted me with a smile. "Mary, what happened last night?" "I can't recall anything," I inquired. "Concerned you danced with my friends at the party? You seem to have had a little too much to drink as you returned to the cabin earlier than expected. I joined you later, and we spent the night together. It was an incredible experience, and we were both truly happy. One thing I should mention is that we always took precautions during our time together. I made sure to use condoms, and I didn't notice any used ones in the trash. Johnny, I understand your concerns about my friends, but they're really good people. We're going to the Bahamas today, and I think you should give them a chance. They like you, and maybe you'll enjoy their company. If you give it a try, let's have a great time at the beach." I vaguely remember the tour mentioning a special day. I asked about it, and a cruise ship employee explained that we could participate if we wanted. I wasn't sure if I felt comfortable, so I waited for Mary's opinion. We had breakfast at the buffet and got dressed in our swimsuits for the beach. Mary seemed to want to say something, but I couldn't read her expression. She put on a stunning green two-piece. We arrived at the island and saw some of her friends. "There are you guys ready for the nude beach?" Bob asked Mary, "and I will go to the regular beach." I responded, "You can go to the nude beach. If you want, this weekend's cruise is perfect for a relaxed getaway. I'm not comfortable with sharing Mary with others. I don't want her to feel uncomfortable among strangers. Mary, I want to enjoy our time together and be a part of your group. Let's find a beach where everyone can have fun. Johnny, I appreciate your understanding, but I want to spend time with my friends. I hope we can still have a great future together." I watched everyone head to the beach for a special event. Mary gave me a sad look before they all started removing their clothes. I waited a bit before doing the same, curious about what was happening. My friends went far down the beach, and I spotted a couple in the distance sitting on a blanket. "Excuse me, I'm looking for a friend. May I borrow your binoculars for a moment?" The woman smiled at me and shared her sunglasses, offering them as a gesture of goodwill. I glanced along the beach where people were enjoying their time with friends. I returned the sunglasses to their owner and expressed my gratitude. I decided to change back into my clothes and head back to the ship. As I walked, I contemplated the remaining days of the cruise. I approached the captain, who informed me of a small plane departing later that day. Grateful for the information, I returned to my cabin, packed my belongings, and took an airplane ticket. I left a note for Mary, acknowledging our past, but emphasizing that it was clear she preferred her friends. I requested she not contact me, but wished her the best in life. When I returned to Florida, they switched my ticket with any issues, allowing me to get home easily. Everything Beth had said was accurate. It turns out I dated the wrong sister. I drove home and called Beth. "Hello, Beth. This is Johnny. Johnny, I thought you went on the cruise with Mary. Where are you?" "I'm home. Everything you told me was true." Mary wanted me to join their group. They all wanted to celebrate something they called New Day. It was just another excuse for them to have sex with each other. They never grew up. I left an airplane ticket for her. She'll probably call you to pick her up at the airport. Is it over for sure between you two? Yeah. I gave her a choice. I told her I could forgive her past, but it was time to choose her future. And she chose her friends and the beach. Thank you for telling me what she was really like. Beth, maybe I'll see you again sometime. Goodbye. I never did hear from Mary. I did get a call. The following week, from Beth. You were right. Johnny, Mary called me for a ride from the airport. She talked all the way home about how she really blew it with you when you gave her an ultimatum. She kept saying how she chose badly because she had made some mistakes with her friends. All my feelings for Mary left when I saw her with Bob at the beach. Bob invited Mary and one of her friends to join him in the band on a trip to Las Vegas in California. Next month, Beth shared, I hope she finds what she's looking for. I thought we had something special. Thank you for everything. Beth, as life went on, I continued to work hard and make a good living. Although I missed Mary, I couldn't help but remember how she was so beautiful and enjoyable to be around. But then I discovered the truth about her, and dating became difficult. I tried dating again a few times, but it just wasn't the same. I thought about reaching out to Beth, but it seemed inappropriate to move on from one sister to another. Time passed, and eventually Beth called me again. Hi, Beth greeted warmly. I have some news to share. Mary went to Las Vegas with Bob. Even though Mum and Dad were concerned, Mary said you two ended things and mentioned you could have me. She really likes you, but was using you before Mum thought you could change her anyway. Would you like to go out with me this Saturday? Surprised, I couldn't help but notice Beth's attractiveness and charm. Sure, I agreed, but are you certain about this? Yes, Beth replied with confidence. I've always liked you, and I think this is the right decision. Okay, you pick where you want to go. Let me know whether to dress up or dress down. It's all up to you. Dress up, we'll have dinner at a nice lounge with some relaxing music and maybe some dancing when I stop by to pick her up for our date. Her mum greeted me at the door and even gave me a hug about that time. Beth came into the room. She had a big smile that showed her dimples. Beth, you look beautiful. Where are we going tonight? I asked. I scored us a table at the City Lounge. Have you been there before? I shook my head. Nope, never. A local band's playing. They cover classic tunes. I've been listening to them since I was a kid. My parents adored them too. Sounds like a blast. Great meeting you again. Mrs. Waters, a bit concerned at first, given my past with her sister, but after we got settled at the restaurant, everything went nicely. Beth recounted some memories from her youth. High school was a breeze for me, but I never had a clear career plan in mind. So I went state college, hoping to uncover my passion. After graduating, I began working at an insurance business. I'm not just a receptionist, I'm also obtaining my license to become an agent. I handle a lot of walk-ins and answering queries for clients. She had a beautiful smile that drew me in. Occasionally, I compared her to her sister, and I couldn't help but feel envious. She was equally as impressive, if not more so, than Mary. However, as I learned the truth about her sister, my perspective transformed. I inquired if she was dating or had a significant other. Johnny, if I had a significant other, we wouldn't be here now. In high school and college, I went on a few dates, but I wasn't promiscuous. So most of those dates were one-time experiences. I've always wanted someone I could trust and who accepts me for who I am. Not just for my appearance, I aspire to have a family with a lovely home and at least 2 children, as well as a spouse who is faithful and to whom I can be loyal. Finding such a person is becoming more difficult these days. That's why Mary's remarks about our relationship bothered me. I apologize for bringing her up. It's okay. Beth, I could tell you were expressing your genuine emotions. Let's head to the lounge and listen to some old songs. Beth, I truly want to hold you close. I promise to always be honest with you. I will not lie. We entered the lounge, which was packed with middle-aged people. Beth remarked that the band's music choice drew this gathering. She met several people and mentioned that it was one of her favorite sites. We sat, ordered beverages, and listened to nostalgic music from our parents' era. Where and when I asked Beth to dance, she embraced her and sang softly along. Her voice sounded wonderful. We seemed to have stood and chatted like this before we gazed at each other in the same way, but I can't recall where or when she felt great in my arms as we danced faster, capture the smiles of those around us. After a time, I complimented her lovely voice, learning she participated in both the high school and college choruses, as the night came to an end, we danced for the following 2 hours to mellow tunes. I indicated a want to see her again. Soon she mentioned visiting every 2 weeks, but recommended we meet closer to her, barely an hour away. Excited, she offered going to a baseball game the next weekend, a location I'd always wanted to visit. She smiled as I leaned in to give her a quick kiss on the cheek. Then I took a step back, gazed into her eyes, and kissed her again. Afterward, I wished her evening and drove all the way home. I could not quit thinking about her. Is it feasible for two people to become thus close so quickly? After meeting, my phone rang as soon as I entered my house. I pondered who could have called me so late. "Hello," I responded. "Johnny, this is Beth. I did not want to call when you were driving. My mother wants to know if you'd like to come to dinner tomorrow. They are holding a BBQ, and my father is grilling ribs. My mother told me to invite you. Do you want to come?" I couldn't help smiling. "Yes, I will be there. Do I have to bring anything?" Dad said, "Miller, light would be good. My mother likes wine. Coolers. Be here around noon. Miller Lite and wine coolers. It's Beth. I had a great time tonight. Good night." I dozed off to sleep, but my mind refused to rest. The following morning, I showered and headed to the supermarket. I arrived at the Watts house with a beer in one hand and wine coolers in the other. Beth answered the door, embraced me, and gave me a nice kiss. The following weekend, we went to the ballpark and had a great time. Beth's blonde hair was wrapped in a ponytail, and she was wearing a ball hat. She was a joy to be around during the 7th-inning stretch. She jumped up and asked, "Take me to the ball game with everyone else." Wow, what a gorgeous voice. We started spending every weekend together. We even went to an amusement park to enjoy the thrilling roller coasters. She was a truly down-to-earth young woman. We had not moved. Beyond kissing, we'd been dating for more than a month and a half. On a Saturday, we ate out and then went to the city lounge. We were dancing when the owner approached and asked Beth to sing. She consented, saying that she would occasionally perform for the visitors. That is why many people recognized her. Beth entered the stage, and the proprietor introduced her, saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, Beth Waters will be singing for us tonight. For the regulars, you understand how fortunate we are to have her here." She then focused her performance on our relationship, singing, When I fall in love, it will last forever, or I will never fall in love." In such a turbulent environment, love appeared to be unachievable, as if it had never really begun. A large number of moonlit hugs looked to lose their warmth in the sun's rays. Beth's lovely voice charmed everyone in the room. Tears welled up in my eyes as I heard her sing. When she concluded, I joined the crowd in applauding her performance. Beth returned to our table, and I couldn't stop kissing her. People continued to approach Beth throughout the evening, but she handled each interaction calmly. As we prepared to leave, she requested if I would take her to my home. For the night, she felt we'd waited long enough and professed her love for me. I told her that I loved her as well, and we didn't talk on the trip to my house until we got inside. I hugged her once more. "I adore you on Jacobs, and I'm eager to take our relationship to the next level. I've loved you since you told me about your sister. It was a watershed moment for me, and I knew I'd been dating the wrong person all along." We entered my bedroom and started undressing each other. We considered using a condom, but Beth had been on the pill for years, so we thought it was unnecessary. We lay on the bed and exchanged a gentle kiss before I started exploring her body. I gently kissed and licked her neck before moving on to her chest and the area below her belly button As our connection grew deeper, he carefully lowered himself to approach her beautifully groomed blonde hair. He massaged it with his face for a few moments before lightly licking her sensitive area. As it firmed up, he moved down to her center. She had an incredible moment of pleasure when his tongue touched her with both hands on his head. She begged Johnny to be intimate with me. "Be intimate with me now," he began, by pressing the tip of his manhood against her entrance up and down, up and down. He gradually inserted himself into her warmth. Their tempo quickened, and she eagerly matched his movements. He told her that he was close, and she joined him for a peak experience. The sensation was wonderful. He leaned his weight on her while keeping his arms high. They remained like this until her contractions stopped. Finally, he slowly walked away from her. She gazed into his eyes and murmured, "Johnny, do not be upset, but Mary was correct. You're a great partner." I smiled at her, turned off the lights, and we cuddled before falling asleep. When I awoke, she was in the kitchen, making coffee. She had a flawless physique, but I did not compare her to her sister. We ate breakfast together as if it were our usual routine. After she finished, she requested if I could take her home. "No, I'm going you someplace wonderful. I'll let you know when we get there." I responded with a smile. We dressed and went to my car. The drive was brief throughout the ride. She kept asking where we were headed, but I just smiled and shook my head. I soon arrived at a gated community and punched the button to enter. "This is my parents' residence. I want them to meet you. It may seem unusual, but I have never brought a woman here before." When I arrived, I knocked on the door, and the butler welcomed us inside. My mother entered the room, approached us, and gave me a hug. She looked at Beth and inquired, "Who is this lovely young lady, Johnny? You know, you have never brought someone here before." I introduced Beth as a dear friend and added that I planned to marry her someday. Beth was taken aback because we had never addressed it before, but I expected that reaction. I then questioned her, "If you love her, why have you not asked her?" I was concerned she was unprepared, and I doubted I could handle the rejection. "Mom was an honest woman, yet you couldn't help but admire her. I can tell by the way she looks at you, that she is in love with you. Beth, if Johnny proposed to you, would you accept Mrs. Jacobs? I have a tremendous affection for your son." And my response would be, "Yes. Wait here. I will be back shortly." She went into another room, came out with a gorgeous antique diamond ring, and handed it to me. "Johnny, this ring belonged to your grandmother, who intended it to be passed down through the family. Your sister and brother were already married when she passed away. See whether Beth likes it. She should not have to wear a ring that she dislikes." Beth's tears flowed down her cheeks, and the butler gave her tissues. Mrs. Jacobs stood in the living room, admiring the exquisite rings and astonished by their beauty. Mom eagerly informed everyone that Johnny had a special someone and was going to propose. Johnny was nervous, but excited. Mum pushed Johnny to proceed with the proposal, and he grinned, knowing her intentions were sincere. He knelt down, grasped Beth's hand, and said, "Beth, we haven't known each other long, but I believe we can grow together. Will you become my wife?" Beth's eyes filled with tears as she consented, and they exchanged a sweet kiss. Their families accepted Beth and welcomed her into the fold as they traveled to Beth's house. She questioned about the proposal's plans as I anxiously presented you to my parents. I whispered I was about to bring you to meet them, but the moment Mum started talking, I knew I wanted to do it. "I hope you do not feel rushed." You responded, "I was astonished, but I waited until you were prepared." Beth's parents were overjoyed yet wary, fearing we were going too quickly. Beth gave her mother a smile. "Mum, I am not pregnant. I am in love. We need time to prepare everything. So we will wait a few months. Days stretched into weeks, and Beth and her mother were preoccupied with wedding plans. Our church date was arranged, and Beth was able to persuade the popular band from our church to perform at our reception. We agreed not to live together until after the wedding, so I spent more time driving back and forth. I didn't mind. However, one night I received a call from Beth, who seemed nervous. "Johnny, I need to see you. It's important. Can we speak now?" "Beth, it is late. Can we wait till tomorrow? Honey, please tell me what it is." "Mary called and inquired whether you and I were getting married. I told her the truth. It's crazy, but she wants to be my M of honor. We've promised to support each other since we were youngsters." "Can you handle it, Beth? My days of wishing to be with your sister are ended. I am only in love with you if you trust her. I'm fine with it. Just remember that I desire you and you are getting married." "Johnny, I love you so much. I will talk to you tomorrow on the wedding day." I was full of nerves. The church was crowded with people. Some are recognizable, while others are unfamiliar as they stand in front of the pastor. I waited while the music played. The doors at the back of the church opened, and I knew what was going to happen. Despite the pastor's explanation during rehearsal, all I could think about was seeing Beth when she appeared. She appeared gorgeous. I couldn't help but cry, and they would not stop. Beth and her father went towards me, and my head whirled as we exchanged vows when the preacher declared us married. I embraced Beth and kissed her passionately. We entered the hall and exchanged friendly welcomes. My pulse raced as I embraced Mary for the first time, but I felt nothing after. That I knew Beth was the person for me. The band performed our favorite oldies, as well as famous wedding songs such as YMCA, the Bunny Hop, the Macarena, and the funny chicken dance. Dancing with Beth was amazing. It seemed like we were the only ones on the dance floor. The evening was unforgettable. Guests had a good time and were always complimenting us on our celebration. I moved to the same town as Beth, and we purchased the house she had always wanted, complete with a picket fence. We even included a hot tub, which both of us appreciated. I changed my job schedule so that I can spend practically every night at home. After a year, we had our first kid, and we are currently expecting our third. My favorite parts of my life are being a father and spending time with Beth. To celebrate our first new day together, we stayed at home, relaxed in the hot tub, and spent the day expressing our love for one another. Life is good. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe. If you haven't already, also write a comment below with your thoughts on what transpired. Take care.